Welcome back to Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis. We're a day late, Landis. That's my bad. Had something pop up, but we're here to talk about the best, most interesting parts of Northern football, and that includes a full Northern Bowl preview. If you care about bowls involving only Southern teams, we're not the place for you.
You can go cram it, I believe is the nice way to put it.
Yeah. So, and we'll tell people this. We're having a bowl pool on a bowl pick'em mania, bowl extravagant. What's it called? Bowl mania on ESPN. It's like the thing people do. And if you sign up there, we have a group called Kings of the North. It is a private group, so you've got to at least understand that we exist to be in it. And the password is Kings with a capital K. Capital Kings. That's the password to sign up. Please come join us. And I think we'll make it, if we can, that the winner gets to be on a show and and bring up what do you want to talk about Northern football and how and where would you like to tell the South to cram it? Yeah. So I think if we can't give out real prizes, or we'll get the quiz bowl stuff with the FCC and whatever, they come, that quiz show. There was a movie in the 80s about it, the 90s. You saw that show, right? With Ray Fiennes.
Oh yeah.
They think you're cheating and stuff. So we can't give out a car. Otherwise we would. We're this far away from giving away a car for winning our Bowl Mania. But instead, you can just come on the show and hang out. So go sign up again. It's Kings of the North is the name of the group. The password is Kings with a capital K. If you're hearing these words, sign up and tell a friend.
We'll have Mike put a link to it in the description on YouTube.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So we would welcome anybody, and we're excited for that. It is one of those, the confidence one, which I think is the only way to do a bowl pick'em anymore, right? That I think there's 43 bowls. This one gets 43 points. This one gets 1. So again, save all your big points things to pick Northern teams to beat Southern teams.
That's right.
And then who cares what happens in the South?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to start with the Frantic 14, where we run through stuff happening in Northern football. There have been some things happening that we want to cover very quickly before we get into 19 bowls that we are previewing. We'll start with the Frantic 14, though, and we will start with welcoming somebody to the North. It's Dillon Gabriel, the Oklahoma quarterback, transferring to Oregon. He's going to be Bo Nix, and I guess he can be left-handed Bo Nix, and it kind of fits, doesn't it?
Yeah, it fits. It's I don't love the quarterback transfer market at the moment, especially because it just seems like Leonard jumped in with the idea that he was going to Notre Dame, so he wasn't really available. So of the guys who were available, I think Dillon Gabriel was probably the best. So kudos to Oregon for going out and getting him. I had not considered when I was trying to figure out what Oregon was going to do. And Dillon Gabriel made note of this in his announcement, the Hawaiian quarterback pipeline that has come through Oregon. He mentioned Marcus Mariota specifically, but obviously Jeremiah Masoli was also a former Oregon quarterback, different high schools, but Hawaii nonetheless. So it makes sense. I think that is the kind of quarterback that Oregon clearly wants, right? It's less concerned with pure arm strength and more concerned with quick decision making and a little bit of athleticism, and Dillon Gabriel has that.
So good for them for jumping in and getting the dude at the top of the list. Obviously, Cam Ward from Washington State is maybe the best guy left out there. We don't know where he's going to land. Seems like he's dancing around in the South a little bit. Is there any reason that Oregon should be trying to get off the transfer portal treadmill at quarterback, or is this a way to win, man? What are you talking about? We love it.
I think yes. They hit on it obviously the first time they did it, and they can certainly hit on it again here with Dillon Gabriel. I think it's a hard world to live in, and also we're going to soon get past the point of there's a 25-year-old college quarterback available for me to add to my roster, because the COVID year guys are going to keep matriculating out of college football eventually, probably in the next year or two. So I think that makes it a little more difficult to rely on this. I would like to see Oregon get a little better at identifying high school quarterbacks and developing them in their offense, and trying to get their guy that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be Gabriel's a 6th-year guy, right? I mean, this is one of those where he was starting as a true freshman at Central Florida while CJ Stroud and Bryce Young were still in high school. So that's kind of what you have to wrap your head around here. It is a specifically kind of interesting, weird situation with the COVID years, but good job by Oregon grabbing Dillon Gabriel. Speaking of getting some dudes, Colorado, they're building an offensive line, Landis. Deion Sanders has added 4 transfers on the offensive line already, 1 from Connecticut, 1 from Houston, 1 from UTEP, and 1 from Indiana. And then they won a big recruiting battle for 5-star tackle Jordan Seaton. Like, you see a problem, you try to fix a problem. Deion's trying to do that.
Yeah, it is their biggest problem. The Jordan Seaton one, I think, is a far bigger deal than the transfer portal stuff. Like, it's hard. I think it's really difficult to find impact, like high impact transfer offensive linemen. And it's even more difficult when you're trying to basically replace your entire offensive line that way. So we'll see what the transfers end up being. Like, there's not a like slam dunk all conference kind of player that they picked up that they're now adding to their roster. I still think they're going to be better with those guys than they were with the guys they had last year, most likely. But it's Jordan Seaton that I think kind of makes or breaks it. Obviously, he's going there because he thinks he's going to start for them from day one, and he's a really talented player. And if Deion is able to continue to do stuff like that, then I think it's worth taking him seriously as a roster builder. I still don't know what to make of that, because the day that Jordan Seaton committed, 1, no one was expecting it. Yeah. 2, everyone was like, oh, he's still going to take an official visit to Oregon. So like, I want to see the ink on the paper.
See the mountains
before I get excited about it. Yeah.
See the coast. Maybe he hasn't been to Oregon. Yeah. Sometimes you just want to go on a little trip.
Yeah.
Go on a little trip. Yeah. Get a shoe. You get a shoe. You get a free shoe. Is that what happens? I mean, on an official visit to Oregon, you get a free shoe, don't you?
You get 1 shoe, and then they say if you want the other one, you got to come here.
Oh, that's such a good idea. That would be such a nice ceremony when you show up, like at Ohio State, like they remove a black stripe from your helmet when you officially become part of the team. They give you your other shoe, right?
Yeah.
You've earned your other shoe, and so like at the beginning of practice, you're running around, you're practicing in 1 shoe because it's the shoe that you got as your recruit shoe, and now you need your duck shoe. But not a duck shoe, right? That would be difficult to play football in, right? Because no socks. You won't want to do that. No. All right. Let's talk about the Heisman. We should talk about the Heisman. It was won by a player from the South, but the other 3 top finishers were all from the North. So Jane Daniels of LSU won, then Michael Penix of Washington, then Bo Nix of Oregon, then Marvin Harrison Jr. of Ohio State. I did not vote for Jaden Daniels. I did not have him on my ballot. My ballot was Penix, Nix, Harrison. So it was in order, just taking out the guy at the top who, how do I put this delicately, didn't win a game that mattered. Mm-hmm. So that matters to me. What was your ballot?
My ballot was Penix, Daniels, Harrison.
So this is one of these things. They released the voting by region, and there's always like, you can see the bias, and I guess the point is the bias balances out. Michael Penix did win the West. He had 327 points in the West. Jaden Daniels had 279. So at least kind of close. Penix won the Midwest by 1 vote, 287 to 286 over Daniels. I guess that's because you. And it's
yeah.
Whoops. Anyway, bias is terrible here on Kings of the North. We're just here to say that judging people based on geography is no way to live.
That's right.
And that's why I didn't vote for the guy from the South who won at all. So I really do think that you should play games that matter. Their best win was over Missouri. LSU lost to Florida State. They lost to Alabama, and they lost to Ole Miss. And it's not like his fault that they lost, but he just didn't play games that mattered down the stretch. And the defense for LSU was so bad, he was able to, he sort of had to put up gigantic numbers. I'm not saying he's not a great player. I'm saying that's not a winning Heisman case to me when you compare it to what Michael Penix did. But the South does take care of its own, by the way, Landis. He won the voting in the South, 4th, 133 total points for Daniels in the South. Penix was second with 251. So, like, you knew he was going to win, especially as the only, like, Southern dude. Jordan Travis of Florida State was 5th. Jalen Milroe of Alabama was 6th. But I don't know if I'm mad about up here on Kings of the North, where we cut the country in half and ignore the bottom of it. Am I angry about geographic bias, or am I like tipping the cap for like, way to take care of your own South? We see what you're doing, but we'll be back.
Yeah, I think it's the latter because we tried, man. Like it was closer than I thought it was going to be with Michael.
It actually was.
And also, if there weren't a few Northern dingleberries who gave first place votes to JJ McCarthy and Blake Corum, it could have been even closer. So my bone to pick is with those 4 individuals more so than it is the South taking care of its own.
No, the Northern Dingleberry, it's a delicious winter fruit. Just go pluck it right off the bush. Blake Corum got 3 first-place votes, and J.J. McCarthy got 1. It is one of those things, like, should we invite them on? I mean, it's like, again, are we patting them on the back? North, or are we like, come on, guys? Like, if you're going to do it, at least, like, come on, like, don't throw your vote away. Right?
That's right. Don't waste it. Yeah.
All right. So congratulations to Jaden Daniels. Again, just with what the voting has been traditionally, like 2 bad Heisman winners back to back. Like they didn't affect the story of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way, was it the last Kings of the North where my flag plant, right? Was we've got to have the Heisman voting at the end of the year.
Yes.
And we played that clip on social media, and I tagged a guy who works for the Heisman, kind of is like their social media guy, runs the official Heisman podcast, tagged him on it and says, like, here's why you have to have the Heisman at the end of the year. And he responded, and we had a multiple back and forths on Twitter about why I'm wrong and why he's right and I'm right. So, like, his argument, did you read them? I did not find his arguments to be particularly compelling. One of the reasons he said they can't move the Heisman is because the banquet takes a long time to plan and makes a lot of money for charity. And I'm like, okay, charity's great, but like, that's why we can't have a better way of handing out the most prestigious award in North America, because like you can't order enough chicken in January. What are we talking about?
Yeah. Does charity cease to exist in January? Like you can still give money away. You can give money away any time of year. It's a beautiful thing.
I mean, I think you still have the banquet because listen, there's usually not that much drama. Usually, you know who's going to win going in. Yeah. So they go, you have the players show up, you honor the players, and then it's everything exactly as it is, except you don't announce the winner.
Yeah.
And then 6 weeks later, when the playoff is over, you announce the winner from those 5 finalists. So, like, it's right there. It doesn't, again, I don't have to restate it because people watching and listening to the show heard it the first time. We're fighting, though, am I fighting in a productive manner or am I just fighting?
I think it's productive. It feels productive. We're having the conversation out in the open, which I think is important.
Yeah, starting the conversation. So you can go find it. His Heisman pundit on Twitter. We had a long back and forth. All right, other award winners for the North. Hey, congratulations to Northern award winners. Tory Taylor, Iowa punter, wins the Ray Guy Award. Has there ever been a Ray Guy-ier guy than the Iowa punter? My God.
Only Ray Guy. Ray Guy is the only Ray Guy-ier guy. Yeah.
Should we start a competing award? The Taylor Punter of the Year Award, the punt to win Iowa. I can't name it after the Ferentz, but this is ridiculous. He was so good. So congratulations to him. Jackson Powers Johnson, right? Good. Best center for the Remington Award. Tip of the cap to him. That's nice. That's good. And Marvin Harrison Jr., 4th in Heisman, did win the Biletnikoff by 1 vote. Was Malik Neighbors second, not Roma Dunze? Do we know that for a fact?
I believe that is correct. Malik Neighbors was second. Yep.
And so, I mean, whatever. We vote. We don't only vote based on Northern bias, but you and I are among the 600 plus Biletnikoff voters, and we did vote for Marvin Harrison Jr., and he won by a vote.
He did win by a vote. Some others on the Ohio State beat also voted Marvin Harrison Jr. number 1. Our good friend Ari Wasserman also voted Marvin Harrison Jr. number 1.
Yeah. So congratulations to all those guys. The All-American teams are coming out. All that kind of stuff.
There were a lot of Northern Award winners.
Who else? Who else won?
So Michael Penix won the Maxwell Award.
Oh yeah,
best player. Marv won the Biletnikoff. Xavier Watts from Notre Dame won the Nagurski Award.
I was a little surprised by that, but congrats to him.
So was I. Trey Taylor at Air Force won the Thorpe Award. Travis Hunter at Colorado won the Horning Award for most versatile player.
That's good.
Graham Nicholson at Miami, Ohio won the Groza Award for best kicker.
He made everything.
Yeah, and then there was also the Broyles was a Northern coach. Phil Parker.
We're talking about that. We're talking about that in a second.
And then the Home Depot Coach of the Year, if you want to include that, was Kalen DeBoer.
Oh, congratulations to Kalen DeBoer. Yeah. Well, good for him. Let's get to congrats to all the Northern winners. And I mean, it's like, again, it's not that it's not congrats to Southern winners, but they can get congratulated on their own show. Let's talk about my flag plant this week is that Phil Parker, as you just mentioned, the Iowa defensive coordinator, won the Broyles Award as the best assistant in college football. And I think there were 5 finalists, and Sharon Moore, the Michigan offensive coordinator, was one of the other finalists. And I just think Sharon Moore should have won because he wound up being the head coach for Michigan for like 4.5 games, and he helped guide them down the stretch. And I do think, is the Michigan... Like the Michigan offense is not spectacularly talented. Like it's good and solid, but I thought they did kind of maximize what they did. The hard part of this is that Josh Gaddis from Michigan won it in 2021 and then left and went to Miami, and it went sideways. Where is he at? Maryland now?
Yes.
Josh Gaddis, right?
Uh-huh.
And so maybe it's like, oh, it doesn't matter who the play caller is there because this Harbaugh version of offense is working now. But I thought all the things that Sharon Moore did for Michigan this year, and Phil Parker, extraordinary, but they also didn't play a ton of great offenses. And when they did play better offenses, they didn't exactly shut the great offenses down. I don't know. Phil Parker is a deserving award winner. I thought Sharon Moore's season was extraordinary.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Okay.
I don't know.
Signs?
Because
the
thing that makes it extraordinary is that Michigan got its head coach suspended twice, so that Sharon Moore had to step in there. And listen,
what a great strategy!
He did a fine job as the interim head coach for Michigan. I actually don't think their offense was all that impressive. I don't think Michigan had an offense befitting of a coordinator who wins this award. It was a fine offense. I don't think it was a great offense. I don't think it was anywhere near the best offense in the country. And I think that's the kind of thing you should be talking about. Either that or a really dramatic turnaround for a unit, I think, are the coaches who should get looked at for this. And I don't think Sharon Moore kind of fits either of those descriptions. And I hear you on Phil Parker too. Did Iowa play the best offenses in the country? Certainly not. But their defense was excellent this year, and it also feels a little bit like a career achievement award for Phil Parker too, because I don't believe he's ever won this before, and he's been a long time one of the better defensive coordinators in all of college football. So I was more in favor of him winning it than I was Sharon Moore.
Do you think that this was actually Connor Stallion's end game? Was I'm going to get Sharon Moore, the Broyles, taking Harbaugh out?
That was the last page of the manifesto. Yeah, and Sharon Moore will win the Broyles award.
Yeah, both deserving. Again, he got in a crazy spot, but Phil Parker, what that defense did, wild. All right, what's your flag plant?
So my flag plant is for the Miami, Ohio football team, because I love what they're doing at the moment. So they won the MAC, and I think when that happens, talented team, just a couple individuals on that roster, you think the way college football is set up now, a lot of those guys are just going to go elsewhere, try to play Power 5, try to get a nice payday, and certainly you don't fault players for chasing that. But instead, what's happening in Miami is all those guys are coming back. Quarterback Brent Gabbert is coming back. Linebacker Matt Salopek, who was the MAC Defensive Player of the Year, is coming back. Graham Nicholson, the kicker, who was a Groza Award winner, we mentioned earlier, actually went into the portal and then decided to come back. Their leading receiver, Gage Larvadane, is coming back. And every time these guys announced they were coming back, Miami put out a really cool graphic with them explaining why that was the case, with a college football playoff logo on there, which I thought was a really cool way of them saying, we're running this back, we're going to go win the MAC, and we're coming for that G5 playoff spot. Now, can the MAC get that spot? Probably not. I think it's really difficult for them to get it, but I like that Miami is celebrating this, because I think this stuff needs to be celebrated while the sport continues to be set up for programs like Miami to just have their rosters rated every offseason. So I like that Miami is keeping their guys and then throwing it back in everybody's face and then putting it out into the world. We're making a run at this. We're going to try to win the MAC again and make the playoff.
So I didn't exactly know what this flag plant was. And so I have multiple pages for the Miami Bowl thing. We'll talk about it right now. I think they can get the group of 5 spot next year. So this is in the 12-team playoff. There will be 5 guaranteed conference winners that get in. There's only going to be 4 power conferences next year. So this has existed with the New Year's 6 bowls. In the 10 years of the 4-team playoff, here are the conferences that grabbed that group of 5 spot. It was the American Athletic Conference 7 times, the Mountain West once, Conference USA got it this year with Liberty, and the MAC got it once in 2016 when Western Michigan went 13-0. But the American, 5 of those 7 teams that grabbed it for the American are now in the Big 12, because Cincinnati got it twice, Central Florida got it twice, and Houston got it once. So we've kind of taken off the top layer. So now you're talking, I think about Mountain West teams, right? Boise, Air Force, Wyoming, whatever. I don't even know what's going to happen officially with Washington State and Oregon State next year. They're going to play a Mountain West schedule, but not really be in the Mountain West. They will certainly be in that mix. But I do think the MAC's chances are elevated. And the 13-0 season by Western Michigan like is the example. Like it's not impossible, but I do think the MAC grabbing a playoff spot looks like this. Which is why you're planting your flag. Like this is how it has to happen. And maybe then even they can go out in the portal and add a guy or two who wants to come play with the chance at a conference championship and an outside shot at a playoff berth.
Miami's schedule next year, by the way, the non-conference at Northwestern, Cincinnati rivalry game, at Notre Dame.
Wow. Oh, okay. They got to win all those three. Oh, okay. No, because I guess you have to win two of those. You have to win two.
You have to win two of them, which doesn't sound crazy, right? If I say like this Miami team bringing back basically everybody, they're going to go beat Northwestern and Cincinnati. It's like, okay, I hear that. Yeah.
And then compete with Notre Dame. So yeah, but you like it. So shout out to them. They beat Toledo in the MAC championship game. And like you've got to find the thing you're aiming at, right? It's going to be a playoff centric world, but there's still goals, right? Teams have to be smart. It's so important in this new era for teams to A, understand who they are, and then B, firmly establish goals that they are shooting for to help their fan base understand what success looks like. So I think it's really important for teams to say like, man, we're winning 8 games. You know, and that might sound crazy to say, but like, especially in a world like there's not going to be divisions, right? You can't say we're going to, and like, what are we trying to do? Like high standard, but also realistic. You can't just be like, we're going to win. Everybody can't say we're going to win all their games, but something like this, leaning into this, hey, it'll be exciting next year. The Miami playoff chase will be front and center on Kings of the North, right?
Can't wait. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last thing, we wanted to throw this in because Nebraska, Landis, what is happening? Nebraska all of a sudden might have too many quarterbacks. Matt Rule, what are you doing?
Yeah, he's building the 2024 Ohio State quarterback room, apparently. Yeah. So Kyle McCord, former Ohio State quarterback, took an official visit to Lincoln on Monday. It's probably still happening as we're talking on Tuesday morning. So that's one piece of it. And then late Monday night, it comes out that Nebraska is really pushing to flip Dillon Gabriel, who was a 5-star quarterback. I believe he's still the number 1 quarterback in the class of 2024, was formerly committed to Ohio State, is now committed to Georgia, is a Nebraska legacy. His uncle was the offensive line coach there. And Nebraska was like a minor player in that recruitment initially. And now it sounds like Matt Rule and his staff and their NIL coalition are making a serious push to flip him from Georgia.
So his uncle is the offensive line coach at Nebraska. That he was retained by Matt Rule when he took over for Scott Frost, which is a smart thing to do if you want to try to get a 5-star quarterback. I've often joked that when Quinn Ewers came to Ohio State, he reclassified and came to Ohio State for 1 year. And I just said he went to like Columbus High School for a year and then went back to Texas. Dillon Gabriel actually went to high school in Georgia. He transferred from Arizona to Georgia to Buford High School in Georgia. And now might wind up going to Nebraska. That would be wild.
What's funny about that is I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert in the relationships between Buford High School and the University of Georgia, but I know that Buford does not send a lot of guys to Georgia, and it's like a sticking point for Georgia football fans. The Buford, which is one of the best high school programs in the state of Georgia, often sends its best players to anywhere but Georgia. Like Harry Miller was a 5-star guy who went to Ohio State from down there. And I think
KJ Bolden there? Isn't KJ Bolden?
I believe he is there now. Yes.
He's going to Florida State.
Yes, or perhaps Auburn, apparently. But when Dillon Gabriel decided to transfer to Buford, of all places, I think there were a lot of Georgia fans who were just like, oh, well, I guess he's not coming to Georgia.
Oh, my God. Wow. What a win for the North it would be. Holy moly. So that's, good for Nebraska. Let's get Nebraska interesting, man. Moderate, right? Just like moderate, but kind of okay quarterback play from Nebraska would be a potential game changer for them.
Oh, yeah.
So
it was a mess last year. Yeah.
Certainly worth monitoring. Sure. All right. It's bowl time. When we come back, we're going to break down 19 bowl games involving Northern teams. We'll do that next on Kings of the North. All right. Time for our bowl preview. 19 bowls, not quite every single bowl involving a Northern team. No offense to like Eastern Michigan and Utah State. And we didn't quite get to everybody. But we get to the most important ones, the most interesting ones. And again, we just want you guys to be aware of sort of what to have on your mind for Northern teams in bowl season. And if you'd love to join us in our Bowl Mania on ESPN.com. You can sign up there. I think you have to create an account, but you'll figure that out. And then find us. It's Kings of the North. It is a private group, and the password is Kings with the capital K. The first bowl that we are going to preview is the Myrtle Beach Bowl, Saturday, December 16th at 11 a.m. on ESPN. This is Ohio, which is finished 9-3 this year. OU versus Georgia Southern at 6-6. Landis, this is the third best MAC team, I think, versus maybe the 10th best team in Conference USA, because like everybody in Conference USA made a bowl. So they have 12 bowl teams. Conference USA does more than any other conference. The ACC has 11. The SEC only has 9. The Big Ten only has 9. Conference USA, the world said we need to see 12 Conference USA teams in bowl games. Good luck to you. I don't know. Ohio's probably missing some dudes, though, for this, right?
Yeah, their quarterback, Curtis Rourke, is in the transfer portal. Their top 2 running backs are in the transfer portal. 2 of their best receivers are in the transfer portal. One of their better linebackers is in the transfer portal. So, yeah, they're missing quite a bit. Sam Wiglusz is still there, the former Ohio State walk-on, who's been a very productive receiver for Ohio, as I believe is still playing in this game as we're talking about it now. They're going to have a quarterback who has 24 career pass attempts.
13 completions. 13 completions.
Yeah, he is 10 for 10 this year.
Nice.
So that's something to take into account. So yeah, it's a tough spot, I think, for Ohio. The one thing about Ohio is like their defense is very good, has been very good all year. And as you said, like Georgia Southern, I don't think is a particularly strong football team. And I do think it's Georgia Southern throws the ball a ton. They have the second most pass attempts in the country, but they're not very good at it. And Ohio has one of the better passing defenses in the country and should have most of their guys that make that so. So I think it can still be an okay spot for Ohio, even if they are missing quite a few guys on offense.
Ohio getting 3.5 in this game. We're going to reference the FEI ratings a lot. That's just an overall statistical rating of team strength. We're acknowledging that a lot of these teams in bowl season, as you guys know, don't look like the way they looked in the regular season. During the season, Ohio's a better team. They're 76th in the FEI. Georgia Southern is 101. Georgia Southern coached by Clay Helton, the former and failed USC coach. So that's nice. I don't know. But Ohio, this is the second straight year they've won at least 9 games. That's the first time that happened in school history. They beat Iowa State earlier in the year. Georgia Southern's on a 4-game losing streak. There's not a lot to like about Georgia Southern. So like if this was OU, I think this is perhaps a dominant performance by Ohio. It's how close they can get to being a version of themselves for the Bobcats in order to win this game. I do still think they have a really good chance to go win this game. Tim Albin is 22-16 in his 3 years. They were 10-4 last year, got a win in the Arizona Bowl. So these guys, this coach, they have gone and won a bowl game. So I don't know, man. I think I'm leaning Ohio here.
No, I am too. I still, like I said, I still like Ohio's defense quite a bit. And I guess in a weird way, because they were not a super dynamic offensive team when they had all of their guys available. So maybe the fact that they don't have really anybody now isn't that much of a departure for them, because they're used to winning games with defense anyway. So I like Ohio here too. It's just a more difficult game than it needs to be based on the opt-outs, but I still think they're a better team than Georgia Southern.
And Curtis Rourke could wind up at a Power 5 school, possibly, right?
Interesting transfer. Yeah, I could see him like bottom of the Big Ten, maybe kind of guy. I wouldn't be surprised by that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next up, it's another MAC school in a bowl game. This is the Cure Bowl. This is Miami of Ohio against App State. Appalachian State is 8-5. Miami of Ohio, as we just mentioned, the MAC champions at 11-2. This is December 16th. Also, this is on ABC at 3:30. It's in Orlando, and these teams are closer. Miami, not a great offense this year. At FEI, Miami's offense is 112, but their defense is number 38 overall. So we talked about what they're building back here. This is like the first step in that. Right, for Miami to go out and win this bowl game against Appalachian State.
It's a tough spot because Avion Smith, the quarterback that they won the MAC title with, is like a really dynamic runner, is in the transfer portal, and he was playing because Brett Gabbert is out for the year. So they're down to their third quarterback in this game, Henry Hessen, who has 5 career pass attempts. He should be getting the start. And App State's a really good football team. Like, it's a good program. And I was looking just like a bowl history. Like App State is 6-1 in bowl games since joining the FBS. Like they take these games seriously and often do quite well in them. So I don't know that I love the matchup for Miami just based off of having to play with their third string quarterback. But again, it's similar to the game we just talked about. Miami's got a very good defense. And that sort of is what carries the team. But App State's offense is pretty solid, especially throwing the ball, more so than a Georgia Southern team is. So I know that I'm pumping up Miami and I'm on the Miami train for next year. I don't know that I'm on the Miami train for this game.
Again, this game on ABC, Miami getting 5.5 in this game. This will be the third time ever that Miami of Ohio is appearing on ABC. The previous two times against Michigan in 2004, against Ohio State in 2005. So again, this is a big spot, right? This is going to be eyeballs early in bowl season on Miami. Miami all time is 8-6 in bowl games. This is their fourth straight year of going to a bowl game. They lost to UAB in the Bahamas Bowl last year. And again, Graham Nicholson, right? Graham Nicholson, am I getting that right?
That's correct.
26-27 on field goals to win the Lou Groza. So how about he kicks a game-winning field goal? You down with that?
I can go down with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think App State is more dangerous than Georgia Southern that we just talked about, but I think Miami can win this game with its defense. It's like a top 50 defense. I think Miami has a chance, and this is one of these things that happens. This is what a lot of this stuff in bowl season that we're going to get to some Big Ten versus SEC games down the road. I think there are 3 Big Ten SEC games where the teams playing each other are the exact same team.
Mm-hmm.
They're the southern version and the northern version of the exact same team. And a lot of this stuff, when it's Conference USA or southern teams in the American Conference, that kind of thing, versus the MAC, this is like the mini version. This is North versus South. This is, again, why we exist.
That's right.
To have these southern teams come face northern MAC teams that play good defense is an interesting part of bowl season. And I'm curious if like these good defense, because you'd be like, okay, there's a bunch of dudes opting out all over the place, but we're going to play defense the way we play it. And that's going to win us the game.
It's also, this has nothing to do with the game itself. And I have not been to either of these towns, but I think like 2 very like sneaky good college towns in Oxford, Ohio and Boone, North Carolina.
I mean, we'll go. We'll send you.
Yeah. I'd love to
do a little eating pizza, and people like to do that. You go eat pizza in a college town and do a show about it.
That sounds great. I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. We'll work on it.
One thing for App State will be without its leading rusher in this game. Nate Noel is not playing.
Okay, so that evens things out. Again, just assume, I think shorthand is assume the 5 best players on every team in bowl season aren't playing.
It's probably safe. So you're going Miami here?
I'll go Miami again. Heads up. I think of our 19 games, I think only 3 of them are North versus North. The other 16 are North versus South. You're going to be hearing a lot of North picks.
Yeah. You're not getting one for me here. I'm picking up.
What?
Yeah.
Why don't you go eat some pizza in Boone, North Carolina if you're going to be that way. Okay. The next one up is we are doing a Mountain West Bowl here. It's the LA Bowl. Boise State versus UCLA. UCLA at 7-5. Boise State at 8-5. Let's see. Boise State is 12-7 all time in bowls. I think UCLA leads the head-to-head series 1-0. So this is kind of a weird one. There's going to be like some question marks at quarterback for Boise State, but Ashton Genty, who led the nation in yards from scrimmage per game, like is staying in school and will be in this thing, which is a gigantic deal for Boise State.
It's a huge deal for Boise State. Boise, because UCLA is also going to be without Latu, their like star stud defensive end, with a Lombardi Trophy.
Yep.
It's going to be like a top 10 pick. He has opted out. So I think because that's happened, Boise State now has the best player in this game in Ashton Genty. So that obviously is something in their favor. Quarterback is weird here for Boise because Taylon Green. It was weird. Like Taylon Green entered the portal and then it was like, well, he still might try to play in the bowl game, but like I don't know how you do that if you're like taking visits and not practicing. So that is not happening now. So I think CJ Tiller, true freshman, and Colt Fulton is a third-year player who's played 8 snaps in his career. So don't love that, but I think there's something here for Boise. Like it's Spencer Danielson's first game after getting the job as permanent head coach and winning the Mountain West title. probably feels like they're building towards something next year and wants to set it off on the right foot here with a win in this bowl game. So I think motivation is on Boise's side and Ashton Genty is on Boise's side. So I still like Boise here, even with the quarterback questions.
Weren't there like planes flying overhead UCLA at the end of the year about whether Chip Kelly should keep his job or not? I don't know. Is UCLA motivated by like Chip is back?
They were like, it was weird. Like, I guess that was like a trial balloon to see what people thought of getting rid of Chip Kelly, but then he beat USC. It's like, well, can we get rid of him? He just beat USC.
Is that by the athletic? The athletic department was flying the flag.
Yeah, Martin Jarman was flying the plane.
That is leadership. UCLA's defense is awesome. Like by FEI, they're 8th in the nation in defense this year. Except this year. Their best guy is opting out, and their defensive coordinator beat USC and then got stolen by USC. So they're not going to be the defense they've been by FEI. These teams are very similar. UCLA number 39 overall, Boise number 43 overall. Again, you wind up trying to figure out who's going to be closer to themselves. UCLA also kind of went back and forth on quarterbacks this year. Dante Moore, the true freshman, played. He's transferring. Ethan Garbers took over. It feels like Ethan Garbers will be the quarterback in this game. Mm-hmm. So I do think with the uncertainty at quarterback for Boise, if UCLA can still be a facsimile of what they are defensively, I think this is a tough spot for Boise.
It is. I think without their best player and without their coordinator, it's a little bit of a difficult challenge for UCLA. So we'll see what that looks like. And Boise is the underdog here. I think that's probably right. But I don't know, man. I love Ashton Genty. I think he's enough. I could see him going for like 200 yards in this game and just kind of carrying Boise to a win.
Boise State getting 4. This does not feel like a game where I would put a ton of confidence points on the result.
No,
either way. So, but I'll take UCLA. You'll take Boise.
Yeah,
probably as we stand right now. Okay, bowl number 4. This is Syracuse versus South Florida. Boca Raton. Where do you stand on that?
Raton?
Boca Raton.
Yeah.
It's the Boca Bowl. Just the Boca Bowl. Sorry.
Boca Bowl. Yeah.
Syracuse 6-6 had to beat Wake Forest in the last game of the year to get to 6-6 to get bowl eligible. South Florida also 6-6. Nunzio Campanelli is the interim bowl coach after Dino. Did you just snap your fingers?
No, I did the Italian.
Hey.
Yeah.
Because he's a Rutgers guy, wasn't he? Was he an interim Rutgers coach at one point too? Like before Shiano got there?
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah.
So Fran Brown is taking over at Syracuse and is kind of like he's making moves. Again, we've talked about Fran Brown. It feels like there's a lot of energy and intelligence, and like Fran Brown has a plan. And Fran Brown, I think, is like not taking a backseat to anybody, but. And there's a couple spots here that we'll talk about where they're like the interim coach. This happens a lot. Like is not in charge of bowl prep. I'm trying to build a staff. I'm trying to get in the portal. I'm trying to figure out our signing day class. I'm not worried about bowl prep. So the guy who's staying on staff, Campanelli, was on the staff with Dino Babers. He's going to stay on staff with Fran Brown. He's taking over. These teams used to be in the Big East together, which is kind of funny. South Florida 8-2 all time against Syracuse in this setup where they used to play each other all the time. I don't know, like Q's has a little juice there, even though Fran Brown's not doing bowl prep. Can it carry over to the bowl?
That's my biggest question for this game, right? Is what is this for Syracuse? Is it like the silent fade out of the Dino Babers era, or is it like the initial introduction to what this program could be under Fran Brown, even if Fran Brown is not coaching, obviously. Maybe it can't be that because he's not actually coaching. And I do think this roster is going to look pretty drastically different next year with some aggressive moves in the portal and with the way that I think Fran Brown and his staff are going to recruit high school players and probably play young players too. So maybe it can't quite be that first initial step of the Fran Brown era, but I think it is more in that direction than it is like a whimper of an end of a season with Dino Babers kind of losing his job. It does feel like there's a little bit of energy there with Syracuse as it's going through this transition. And I just don't know, like, I don't think South Florida is all that good. They could have some offensive line issues in this game. So I think I still like Syracuse, but it's hard to figure out exactly what state of mind they're going to be in.
December 21st, 8 p.m. on ESPN. Syracuse is favored by 3. And the FEI rating, Syracuse is 72. South Florida is 112.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you? You're the 112th best team in the country, but you managed to go 6-6 and slide into one of the 82 bowl spots. Really bad on defense. So I do think, Syracuse was playing pretty good ball earlier in the year and then fell off as they had the previous 2 years, which is why Dino Babers doesn't have a job anymore. But they got that win to get bowl eligible and to have even just this opportunity for Fran Brown to sort of have eyes on his team through bowl prep and stuff. Like, I think this is kind of a big deal for the next era. I think it's more the beginning of something than the end of something. So I think I like Syracuse here also in part, as you said, because South Florida is not very good.
We know Garrett Schrader is going to play, right?
Seems like it, and that has certainly been a factor for them. His health as the starting quarterback through the end of the season is like that's a big deal. When he's healthy and good, then their offense can be pretty functional.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him be a one-man offense if he needs to be. Yeah. So, they Syracuse dealt with some important skill position injuries throughout the year, and obviously that'll still be the case in this game. But if you're telling me I'm going to get a healthy Garrett Schrader with his ability to run around and make some stuff happen, I think this is a Syracuse win. Yeah.
Okay, we both like Q's in this one. Next up is the Armed Forces Bowl, and we have Air Force in this game. Air Force, which was the story of the group of five through the start of the season. Started 8-0, lost its last 4 after a bunch of injuries. They go in 8-4 versus James Madison, who was another story of the season. 11-1. They were petitioning to be eligible for a bowl. They're in a transitional phase, which means you're not eligible for a bowl as you transition into FBS. But then if there aren't enough teams with non-losing records, then those teams become eligible for bowls. So that happened. There were 3 teams that they were 3 short of having enough teams that were 6-6 to get everybody in. So James Madison, 11-1, got in. They just don't have their coach or their quarterback. They don't have anything that made them who they were this year because Curt Cignetti got the Indiana job based off JMU going 11-1. I don't know. What is it? Like, this is a shell. This is a shell of a shell. And they had an All-American defensive end who got hurt, right? So, I mean, this is not the JMU. The one thing for Air Force is Zach Larrier, the quarterback, maybe, I guess, could be back. And their downfall started with him getting hurt. So if he's back, that seems like a big deal. But again, this is 2 really interesting teams that are not going to be who they were.
I think Jordan McLeod, the James Madison quarterback, is playing in this game, isn't he? He's in the transfer portal, but I believe he's playing.
He's going to play? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Sunbelt Player of the Year, like pretty dynamic dude, had a great season. The last I heard was he was playing in this game, so I think that is the case, and I think that's probably why James Madison is still favored in this game. James Madison, I think, will be player-wise fairly whole, or at least as whole as it's been down the stretch of the season. They've had to go out and hire part-time coaches to help them coach this game, which is not a tremendous spot to be in. It is the number 1 rush defense in the country, both in yards per game and yards per carry and success rate against Air Force that wants to do nothing but run the ball. I think it's a fascinating matchup.
That seems like a problem for Air Force.
Yeah, and Air Force just hasn't been right for a month. So I don't though, and this game is so important to James Madison, the first bowl game in the history of the program. Even without their coaching staff, I think the motivation factor heavily favors James Madison. They have most of their guys. They've been playing well all year, and their defense I just think is tremendous. So I'm picking James Madison in this one.
That's a tough spot for Air Force. I do think healthy Air Force was probably the best team in the Mountain West, but healthy Air Force doesn't exist anymore. So this version of Air Force hasn't won in a month. So that's a tough spot. FEI ratings overall, James Madison pretty good, 33rd. Air Force 57th. So this feels like a tough spot. Bob Chesney, the Holy Cross coach, coming in as the new coach at JMU, but they probably have, even though they lost their head coach, they probably have more left of who they were than Air Force does when Air Force was 8-0. So I think this is also a spot for JMU, even though it's only Air Force getting only 3 in this game. This feels like maybe. I mean, don't doubt the Falcons, but this feels like maybe some decent amount of confidence in JMU in this one.
Yeah, it is. I will say this: Troy Calhoun, head coach at Air Force, he's 5-1 in his last 6 bowl games, so he knows how to win these.
All right, let's go to bowl number 6 that we're doing. It's a North versus North bowl. This is Northwestern versus Utah in the Las Vegas Bowl. Utah is 8-4. Northwestern is 7-5. By FEI ratings, Utah was number 26 this year. Northwestern was number 55. Northwestern leads the all-time series 2-1. Northwestern won in 1927. I love it when you go back to this. Like, why did Utah and Northwestern play in 1927? They take a horse and buggy to get to each other. I have no idea why they played. 1981, Utah won, and then these teams met in the Holiday Bowl after the 2018 season, and Northwestern won that game. So here we are, only 5 years later, matching up in a bowl game again. Utah just lost to good teams. Utah finished like 5th in the Pac-12, and their 4 losses are the 4 teams ahead of them. They lost to 13-0 Washington, 11-2 Oregon, 9-3 Arizona, and 8-4 Oregon State. So we've talked a lot about how Utah patched it together this year. We've said, is Kyle Whittingham the best coach in college football? And I think some people have said, I've certainly said versions of this, David Braun at Northwestern did as good a job as anybody in college football this year with Northwestern. So given the circumstances, Utah with injury and Northwestern with a hazing scandal that led to the firing of Pat Fitzgerald, both overachieved. Mm-hmm. So 8-4, 7-5, 2 Northern teams in Vegas. Let's let it rip, man. I like this game.
I like it too. It's a fun matchup. It's also a matchup of 2 teams that at times this season have just been sort of like inexplicably incredibly explosive on offense.
Yeah.
There's just been a handful of games where like, what the heck happened there? How did they throw for that many yards and score that many points? So that could be on the table here. This could be, I don't know what the total is off the top. I didn't look it up, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this is a high scoring game. And I know when you think of these 2 teams, you probably think more of like a defensive slugfest, but I think there could be enough with injuries, particularly to Utah's defense, that this is more of an offensive leaning game. So that kind of intrigues me a little bit. Bryson Barnes, I think, is a really cool story in this game. The Utah quarterback who's going to transfer because Cam Rising's coming back, and Bryson Barnes, I probably feels like he showed enough this year to believe that he can be a starting quarterback somewhere. But this is a kid from Utah, pig farmer from Utah, more specifically, who walked on to the team because like it was his dream to play football for the Utes, and like he wanted to be the quarterback for the Utes, and he was this year. And he gets to start in this game and try to lead the team that he loves to a bowl victory before he moves on elsewhere. And I think that's really cool that he's doing that, and not just kind of, cutting ties and leaving and not helping Utah. Because if he wasn't doing this, Utah would be in a really bad spot with his quarterback play going into this game. So he's helping them out, and I think kind of fulfilling a lifelong dream here of trying to help Utah win a bowl game. So it's cool.
We talked about how good the 4 Utah losses are. Northwestern's 5 losses for those 5 to bowl teams. Lost to Rutgers, Duke, Penn State, and Iowa. Only kind of bad losses to Nebraska. Northwestern 6-10 all time in bowl games, but Northwestern's won 4 straight. And Utah is 17-8 all time in bowl games, but they have lost 4 straight. Now the last 2 were Rose Bowls to Penn State and Ohio State. Like, that's no shame in losing Rose Bowls to Penn State and Ohio State. But the losing streak started by losing to Northwestern in the Holiday Bowl after the 2018 season. So like, this is some recent bowl history here that's kind of interesting. And so I definitely think this is worth watching. I think it's entertaining. Utah -7, it maybe feels like, as you kind of indicated, like maybe the last team with the ball wins. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I would bet on it either way, because I think it's hard to get a handle on it, but I think it could potentially be very competitive and fun.
I think like sneaky entertaining. If we go back afterward and like rank the bowl games by their level, by just how much they entertained us, I think this could be one that's higher than perhaps you would expect as we kind of wait here at the beginning of bowl season. Kyle Whittingham's bowl record is weird. You meant like in his first 14 seasons at Utah, they went to a bowl 11 times and he won 10 of them.
Yep.
And then he's lost his last 4. And like you mentioned, like it's 2 Rose Bowls in there to high caliber Power 5 opponents. One they probably feel like they should have won against Ohio State, and maybe they feel like they could have beaten Penn State too. So they need to get back on the right side of winning bowl games. I think for a program like Utah, that's something that's important. And for Kyle Whittingham, I think that's something that's important. So there's a little bit at stake here, I guess, in that regard. And then for David Braun, this is probably an unfair comparison, but it took Pat Fitzgerald 7 years to win his first bowl game at Northwestern, and now David Braun has a chance to do it in his first year.
So he talking about the playoff. Gary Barnett many moons ago when he got hired at Northwestern, famously, as we've talked about the introduction at the basketball game for the head coach. He said, "We're taking the purple to Pasadena," and then not that many years later, Northwestern made the Rose Bowl. David Braun, who was hired as the interim and sort of like he did do a basketball game introduction sort of after getting the full-time job, and he said, "We're taking the purple to the playoff." So like he's throwing down the gauntlet of like what's ahead for Northwestern. So I don't know, both these I don't can either of these teams fight to be like, well, as we've said, I think Utah is going to be the best team in the Big 12. Could Northwestern try to be the fifth best team in the Big 10 one year and scooch in the side of the playoff depending on the schedule? I don't know.
If Northwestern could ever tap into recruiting Chicago in a serious way, I think the answer to that question is yes. But I don't know if they could ever do that. There's going to be a lot of those mid-tier teams in the 18-team Big 10. They're going to be like trying to, in a year where the schedule works in your favor, right? And you don't have too much of Oregon, Washington, USC, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. Can you find a way to weasel out like a 7-2 conference season and win your 3 non-conference and suddenly be sitting there at 10-2 as a chance to be number 10 in the final playoff ranking? So what you got to do? Next September, Saturday, September 21st, Northwestern at Washington. Oh, purple. Yeah, that's purple. Okay, there we go. Who's your pick here? My daughter will be mad if I don't pick Northwestern, and she goes to Northwestern. So I will take Northwestern, but I would not put a lot of confidence on it. Okay, I'm taking Utah. Yeah. All right, next game up is the Quick Lane Bowl. This is another northern matchup. It's Minnesota from the Big Ten, Bowling Green from the MAC. Bowling Green 7-5, Minnesota 5-7. Last team to get a bowl bid because it was JMU and who was the other one? Jacksonville State. Yeah. They both got in as teams transitioning to FBS. And so then they were like, we need one more bowl team. We've got to take a team with a losing record. And then they based that on the best academic progress rate, APR, which is like getting your guys through and getting them graduated. And Minnesota had the highest rating, the highest APR of all the 5 and 7 teams. So they got a bowl bid. So I actually of all the ways to award, like, hey, we need one, like, it's all just a TV show. We understand that. And we need one more character on the TV show. You're going to be 82nd billed on the TV show for a 41 bowls, but actually giving it out based on APR, I actually think is kind of a cool way to do it. Yeah. I like it. I think it's important, right? And you want to reward teams on some level for being good at getting your guys graduated and being eligible. So yeah, I like it. And I think Minnesota embraces this, like the bowl prep, PJ Fleck, they're not like bowl, like we're going to Detroit like the day after Christmas, no, they want it. I think PJ Fleck, he's rowing his boat to Detroit for this game. Very even matchup in FEI. Minnesota 74th, Bowling Green 78th. Minnesota is -4 in this game. It's a 2 p.m. kick on ESPN on December 26th. Minnesota 6 straight bowl wins going back to 2015. PJ Fleck is 4-0 in bowls. This is his 7th year at Minnesota. The only 2 years that Minnesota didn't go to a bowl under PJ Fleck were his first year and the COVID year. So this is another thing of hey, when it's normal under PJ Fleck, Minnesota goes bowling. They won't have their quarterback. Ethan Kalak-Manis is transferring, and it looks like Cole Kramer will make his first start for Minnesota. Is that right? That is correct. 15 career pass attempts for Cole Kramer in this game. Ethan Kalak-Manis was a player that PJ Fleck, at Big Ten Media Days, I thought was really pumping up. They were really excited about what he was going to be, the Greek Rifle, and he wasn't very good this year. Yeah. So I don't know how big of a loss that is for Minnesota. Minnesota's dealt with some injury stuff on offense for much of the season, most specifically at running back, and that'll still be the case in this game. But BG is missing some important players like Jalen Husky. They have 2 really good corners, but he's their best corner, first team All-MAC player. He's not playing. Their second leading rusher is not playing in this game. So, and MAC teams, I don't think are built to really sustain losses like that, like a Big Ten team could be. So I think the losses here impact Bowling Green more than they do Minnesota.
By the way, the one other thing that got Minnesota into a bowl game was Hawaii kicked a 52-yard field goal on the last play of the game to beat Colorado State at like 3:00 in the morning in the last game of the regular season that kept Colorado State from getting to 6-6. So like it is a miracle that Minnesota is in this bowl game. Just as a context of how things work in the group of five sometimes, Bowling Green played Liberty in its opener. Bowling Green threw 5 interceptions in that game, lost the turnover battle 5-1, only lost the game 34-24, and Liberty's playing in the Fiesta Bowl. Liberty is 12-0. Liberty's the group of 5 team this year, and 7-5 Bowling Green playing in the Quick Lane Bowl was like, hey, if we only throw 3 interceptions instead of 5, we might win that game. So Bowling Green has been competitive. They are 2-2 all time against Minnesota. They won the last matchup 14-10 in 2021. So like Bowling Green's like not afraid of it. I don't know. Top 4 MAC teams are not afraid of mid-tier Big Ten teams. That's kind of how this works all the time. Yeah. So the idea that Minnesota probably has better depth to like fill holes in bowl season makes sense to me, but I don't think this is like a slam dunk either way. I guess I would lean Minnesota though.
Yeah, there's still questions, I think, of like, will Tyler Nubin play, the really talented Minnesota safety who's going to play in the NFL next year? Like, I don't know. At the moment, there's not really any high impact opt-outs on the Minnesota side of this, and maybe there won't end up being any. Minnesota is also dealing with Joe Rossi, its defensive coordinator, has been poached by Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. Minnesota's defense was not very good this year, but Joe Rossi, I think, is a good coordinator. So maybe there's a lingering impact there for Minnesota. I think it's right to still lean Minnesota, but there could be another opt out or two here that I think could easily flip this to me thinking if Bowling Green's going to win.
You think that's good poaching by Jonathan Smith at Michigan State?
Yeah, I think so. Joe Rossi had like top 10 defenses, I think, the 2 years prior to this one. And it always comes with the caveat, right? It's in the Big Ten West. What does that actually mean? Like, it's a fair question or a fair point to make. I do think that Joe Rossi has been one of the better defensive coordinators in the Big Ten over the last 4 or 5 years. And I like Jonathan Smith kind of bringing in a new face to his Michigan State program, but a guy who is more familiar with the Big Ten than a lot of his staff is. So I think there's value there.
All right, next bowl up as we both take Minnesota for now.
Yeah.
Next bowl up is the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
That's right. Best bowl game there is.
Duke is not playing in it, though, right?
Like different Dukes. Yeah.
It's North Carolina playing in the Duke's Mayo Bowl against West Virginia. Both teams 8-4, and Drake May, the North Carolina quarterback who is going to be a top 3 pick in the NFL draft, is opted out of this game. Correct, Landis?
That is correct. Yes. I didn't think he was going to play when I started gathering notes initially for this. I was like, oh, maybe Drake May will play, and I was like, nope, he's going to be a top 5 pick. He's not playing.
Yeah. So that moved the line a couple points, like not surprisingly, that North Carolina is going to be on a backup quarterback. And I think West Virginia is going to be closer to whole than North Carolina is. North Carolina, by the way, started 6-0 this year. They were like on the edge of the top 10, like, hey, what are they doing here with Drake May in his final year? And they go 2-4 down the stretch. While we've talked about West Virginia all year, kind of like they're down, then they're back up, then they lose a game on a Hail Mary at the end, and they get their feet back under them. In the end, a really good 8-4 year for West Virginia. They're similar in the FEI ratings. Overall, West Virginia 41, North Carolina 34. And I think you're getting a much more fully formed West Virginia team. West Virginia -5.5. Again, that line moved. It was about -3 for West Virginia before the May opt-out. So that's like Drake May not playing is worth about a field goal in this game. All time, they are 1-1 against each other. 1997, North Carolina, both bowl games, North Carolina beat West Virginia in the Gator Bowl. And then 2008, West Virginia won in the Meineke Car Care Bowl, which is this bowl, which is this bowl in Charlotte. It just used to be Car Care, and now it's mayonnaise. And so I don't know. I think I like the Mountaineers here.
So the winning coach of this game gets a vat of mayonnaise dumped on his head. When it was the Car Care Bowl, did they just drop a car on him, or how did that work?
I guess like you won the game and then guys just like ran out in the parking lot and started fixing your car.
Here's a new muffler. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. West Virginia does not have Zach Frazier. It's really talented. Center was a first team all Big 12 selection. He got hurt in the regular season finale against Baylor. So that's a big loss for them. But otherwise, like you said, I do think they are mostly whole here. North Carolina is not, and obviously the big one there is Drake May. And we know what West Virginia wants to do, right? They want to run the football with a couple of running backs and their quarterback and kind of beat you up front. And some teams have run the ball on North Carolina this year. And I don't think that North Carolina is probably super into the idea of playing a bowl game. Mac Brown's 1-3 in bowl games at UNC. UNC is 1-6 in its last 7 bowl games. So I like West Virginia here, even without Frazier, who actually might be their best player. Even though he is a center, I still think West Virginia wins this game.
Neil Brown, West Virginia coach, was 3-0 in bowl games at Troy. He's 1-1 so far in bowl games at West Virginia. I think this is a good spot for West Virginia. I think they want this. I think they need this. I think like a 9-4 season after how things looked at times for Neil Brown would be gigantic. And so there's a lot of motivation here, whereas North Carolina is playing without their dude. Okay. Number 9 is Boston College versus SMU. This is right down the road for the Eagles. They'll be playing in Fenway Park. SMU 11-2, ranked number 24, one spot away from playing in the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon. Liberty finished number 23. SMU finished number 24. That was to be the highest ranked Group of 5 team in the final playoff rankings. It is always just like amazing to me of, hey, where are you going for your bowl? It's like, well, we're either going to one of the best 6 bowl games to play like maybe the 3rd best team in the country, or we're going to play where the Red Sox play. So, and it's like, how is that the next best spot for SMU? So 11-2 SMU, 6-6 Boston College. By the FEI rankings, SMU 29 overall, Boston College 884 overall. This is nice for Jeff Hafley and BC to get into a bowl. Man, I know it's right down the street. Although, frankly, actually, like Boston University's campus is the one that like Fenway Park is practically on Boston University's campus, and then BC is kind of out on the other side, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they have to come all the way from the suburbs and SMU's coming from Texas, that's a tough spot for BC, is it not?
It is a very tough spot for BC. SMU is a really good team. SMU won't have its starting quarterback, Preston Stone. They didn't have him in the American Athletic Conference Championship game, and they ended up losing that game to Tulane. But they have kind of good. They have better talent on both sides of the ball here. Pretty good rushing team. And I just, it's Jeff Hafley against a team with a winning record. So what do you think I'm thinking here?
Come on. Also, they're going to start getting to know each other because SMU is joining the ACC next year, along with Cal and Stanford, which again is just the craziest ramification of all this realignment. So they're going to be conference friends starting in a season. But for now, it's Texas versus Boston in Boston. By the way, last time that BC played in Fenway, they played there in 2017. They play some regular season games, make it fun for the people. Also, Fenway Park was Boston College's home football stadium from 1936 to 1945, and again from 1953 to 1956, which just has me thinking about Ted Williams, like being like, God, these freaking football, why are I like messing with my, right? Ted Williams like coming out to batting practice and there's football lines in the outfield. And how could Ted Williams possibly tolerate that? I would imagine that the gap between 1945 and 1953, when Boston College didn't play there, is because Ted Williams says, kick them out or I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, this is a baseball field for baseball people. Stop it.
Ted Williams experienced the horrors of war in Boston College playing football on his baseball field. It was like the worst thing that's ever happened to him. Yeah.
One bowl win in the last 15 years for Boston College. 1-7. There's been like a lot of some really weird Boston College bowl luck the last couple of years. In 2018, their bowl game got canceled in the middle of the first quarter by lightning, and like you bowl prep, and then in 2019 they lost 38-6, and in 2021, the day before they were supposed to play, COVID knocked them out. So like Boston College is desperate for like a normal, happy bowl experience, and also the Fenway Bowl was supposed to start in 2020, couldn't because of COVID. Then in 2021, SMU was supposed to play in the Fenway Bowl. And like the day before the game, that game got canceled. So like just a functional game that is played for 4 quarters for both SMU and Boston College, as long as the ghost of Ted Williams is not haunting the game, I think is what everybody's rooting for here.
Yeah, and maybe it'll snow. You got to go play up in Boston, and in late December you could get a little weather on your side if you're Boston College.
Also, SMU lost its quarterback at the end of the year, but they still won the American Championship game, I think, with backup quarterback Kevin Jennings. So like they lost to Tulane, didn't they? They beat Tulane. That's how they finished 24th.
No, they beat Tulane. That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, it's like just let them play is a win for everybody, but I don't think Boston College has much of a chance to actually win the game.
Thomas Castellanos, man, maybe he can run for 300 yards in this game. You've had a very roller coaster relationship with Thomas Castellanos this season, have you not? I love him as long as he doesn't throw the ball. He's great.
So I want to hear about your quarterback. All right, let's all take a breath. That is 9 bowl games down, 10 more to go. We'll reset, and when we come back, we're going to be diving into another Northern team playing in a baseball stadium right down the road. We'll do that next on our bowl preview show here on Kings of the North. All right, next up on our bowl Mania preview, it's Rutgers playing in Yankee Stadium. So you got BC and Fenway Park and Rutgers in Yankee Stadium. I think we talked about this. I like it, right? Northwestern played in Wrigley Field this year. I think these are kind of cool, these baseball stadium games.
No, I like them. Yeah, I think we would just say, we wanted to see the backyard brawl played in like PNC Park. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Or on a barge. No, that was the Cincinnati.
That was the Cincinnati game. Yeah.
We'll figure that out. All right. So at the Pinstripe Bowl, Miami is 7-5, Miami, Florida. Rutgers is 6-6, former Big East foes. So once upon a time in a conference together, 11-0 edge for Miami. This year, Miami 24th in FEI overall. So pretty good for a 7-5 team who did give a win away by not knowing how to kneel correctly. Rutgers is 52nd, but Miami also bowl quarterback uncertainty, correct?
Bowl quarterback uncertainty with Tyler Van Dyke in the portal. Couple important defensive players from what was actually a solid defense, or at least a very good run defense this year. Like Cam Kitchens, one of their safeties, is an excellent player. He's not playing in this game. Couple defensive linemen. So yeah, they're getting hit a little bit by opt-outs here. The only major one for Rutgers is Max Melton. It's starting cornerback, who is a pretty good player, will not be playing in this game.
Kyle Monangai, running back extraordinaire, announced that he is staying at Rutgers for next season, which was kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah, I was really happy to see that. Led the Big Ten in rushing this year, right? Like, really, really good player, I think, and the engine of that offense. They want it to be Gavin Wimsatt eventually, and I think one day that will happen, but it's not yet. It's still the Kyle Monangai show.
So Rutgers was a participant in the Gator Bowl 2 seasons ago in 2021, but in that situation, they were a last-minute replacement, like the week before the game, for Texas A&M when Texas A&M had a COVID situation. So they had like a week prep. They went down and lost to Wake Forest 38-10. Their last like real bowl experience, they beat North Carolina in the Quick Lane Bowl after the 2014 season. Overall, Greg Schiano is 5-2 in bowl games at Rutgers. Without Greg Schiano, Rutgers is 1-3 in bowl games. So I don't know. This is the third time Rutgers playing in Pinstripe Bowl. They're 1-1. This feels like it matters to Rutgers, and I'm sure Miami believes that it should be in a better bowl than this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I think the Scarlet Knights is about to pick them right now. It is a toss-up game. Latest line we saw was Rutgers +1. I think I like Rutgers here.
I think I like Rutgers too. Which is,
you don't have to think. You love Rutgers. Come on.
I like the defense a whole lot, especially against an offense that it's going to be, I think, on its third quarterback. Was Tyler Van Dyke is transferring, and then Emory Williams, who played for Tyler Van Dyke earlier this season, and then I think broke his arm in that game where he kind of took over the starting job, and then Van Dyke had to come back in, I believe. He's also out, so they're on their third quarterback there. And I have a piece of trivia for you.
Oh,
Miami has played in 11 bowl games since Randy Shannon took over for Larry Coker in the 2007 season.
Yeah.
So 11 bowl games. How many of those bowl games do you think Miami has won?
I mean, I just know the U gets up for bowl season. You tell the U, hey, we're going to see you in El Paso. We're going to see you in Charlotte. We're going to see you in Nashville. The U says, tell us what time to be there. We're going to show up, and I'm going to say 2.
Close. 1.
Okay.
1-10 in bowl games since 2007. They played in this here Pinstripe Bowl in 2018 and got boat raced by Wisconsin.
Because no matter the true essence of bowl season is it's cold where I am. Can I go play football somewhere warm?
That's right.
But there's for Miami, you can only get colder unless they played in the Bahamas Bowl, which frankly they should just play in every year.
Yeah.
Unless they're going to South America. Like they can't, they're getting colder. It's like, hey, hey, Miami guy, what are you doing? What are you doing for Christmas? I'm going to the Pinstripe Bowl. Oh, New York is lovely at Christmas. It's surely to be snowing. I'm leaving South Beach to do that. So do you think there's a motivational factor at play here for Miami's lousy bowl record?
A tremendous motivational factor that heavily favors Rutgers. Still outmanned. Like Miami's roster is better. Rutgers is a better coach team, I think. I'm pretty confident in that. I don't think Mario Cristobal is a particularly good coach. I think he's a good recruiter. I think Rutgers is going to win.
Any fear that Miami will steal Greg Schiano as the head coach if Rutgers beats Miami in this game?
He does have a history with the program. I could see it. Yeah.
Okay, next up, our 11th bowl is the Sun Bowl. Notre Dame versus Oregon State, 9-3 Notre Dame, 8-4 Oregon State. And like the best of the versions of these two teams, this would be an absolutely spectacular game. These teams are shells of themselves. I'll start with the Oregon State side of things, and then you can run through the side of things for Notre Dame. So first for Oregon State, Jonathan Smith, the head coach, leaves. Everyone kind of is a little bit mad about it, it seems. Trent Bray, the defensive coordinator, gets promoted to be the head coach, but is like, I'm not coaching the bowl game. I have too many other things to do. So they're going to have like an interim head coach situation. DJ Uiagalelei, the quarterback, is in the transfer portal. Taliesi Fuaga, the All-American offensive tackle, is opting out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Damian Martinez, their borderline All-American running back, got a DUI and is suspended for the game, although he is staying in school, at least as of this moment. They're probably an Aiden Childs, who we love as a quarterback recruit, is also transferring and frankly is probably going to wind up with Jonathan Smith in East Lansing as a new Michigan State Spartan, which leads Oregon State back to Ben Galbranson, who started 8 games last year for Oregon State, which led them to go get DJ Uiagalelei in the transfer portal. They just are decimated from where they were. It is just the reality of the situation. This was an excellent 8-4 team that played a really tough Pac-12 schedule, but we're not getting the real Beavers, right?
No. Could you didn't mention Anthony Gould, the second leading receiver?
Yeah.
Achille Arnold, one of their starting safeties, has transferred. Easton Mascarenas Arnold, a first-team All Pac-12 player, a linebacker, is also transferring. It's like they're missing, I don't know, like 8 of their like 11 best players in this game. It's just like you said, they're a shell of themselves. We're not getting the best of the Beavers, nor are we getting the best of Notre Dame in this game. Sam Hartman, the quarterback, announced on Monday that he will be opting out of this game as he looks ahead to the NFL. A lot of stuff happening with the receivers at Notre Dame, which is interesting to me because they talked a big game last offseason about how much better they were going to be at that position, and then they weren't any better, and now everyone's leaving.
Well, they fired their receivers coach.
They also fired their receivers coach.
Which I don't know if that was... So the 4 leading pass catchers for Notre Dame this season, none of them will play in this game because 3 of them are receivers who are transferring, and one of them is Mitchell Evans, the tight end, who's hurt.
Yes, and Holden Stays, their other tight end, is transferring. So it's 5 of their top 7 players and targets aren't playing in this game. Neither is Zeke Correll, their starting center. He is transferred to Louisville. Maurice Leofau, one of their starting linebackers, has opted out. And I guess there's still the opportunity for like Audric Estime or Joe Alt or Blake Fisher or Howard Cross to opt out of this game because all those guys are probably off to the NFL, I would imagine. So I don't know. Like if Estime and Alt and Fisher, like if both tackles and Estime play, then I think you can just pound the ball against Oregon State probably with some of the personnel issues that Oregon State has. But there's both these teams are already a shell of themselves, and it has the chance to get even worse for Notre Dame.
And so the funny part of this was there was a time that Notre Dame thought it was going to be playing LSU in a bowl game, which was going to be Notre Dame versus former Notre Dame coach Brian Kelly, which would have been awesome. And then the domino effect of Alabama beating Georgia and changing some things around in SEC bowl assignments made that impossible. And from reporting from multiple outlets, what happened was the Duke's Mayo Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl, and the Sun Bowl wound up with North Carolina, Miami, and Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame kind of got lumped in as an ACC team, and they drew straws or like pulled names out of a hat to make these bowl matchups. And the Sun Bowl wound up with Notre Dame, and like everybody in the office did a lap around the block. They were so happy in El Paso to be getting Notre Dame for this game. So this is for the Sun Bowl, this is an awesome matchup. You're just not going to be having the dudes. So I have no idea how this game's going to unfold. They've played twice before in bowl games. Oregon State won both of them in the 2000 Fiesta Bowl, the 2004 Insight Bowl. So, I don't know. It makes me sad, but also on the list of hey, this might be a great game, which we said about some games. December 29th, 2 p.m., CBS, two big names. I don't know how good of a game it's going to be.
I think potentially not a very good game. Shout out to the city of El Paso, by the way. This game sold out, I think, in a day. They love the Sun Bowl down there. I actually feel kind of bad for them that they're not getting the best version of this game, because the best version of this game has the chance to be the most competitive bowl game that we see this year, and maybe it still will be with all the opt-outs and transfers and stuff. But it's just not. It's not the game we were hoping it would be when we saw this matchup come out. That's for sure.
Notre Dame about a touchdown favorite. And frankly, the biggest news happening with Notre Dame is, Bill, they now know who their starting quarterback for next season is going to be. As we record, the Notre Dame of Fighting Irish land their QB.
Yeah, Riley Leonard from Duke, who entered the transfer portal, I think about a week ago, and immediately there was speculation that he was going to go to Notre Dame. He entered the portal with a do not contact tag next to his name, which means teams can't try to lure him away. He kind of had his mind made up, I guess, on where he wanted to go. I don't believe he visited anywhere other than Notre Dame. I know teams like Ohio State were trying to get on his radar. They were interested in him, but clearly he was only interested in going to one place, and that was Notre Dame. So here's Notre Dame again, dipping into the ACC, to get probably the best quarterback in the conference to come play for them next year. I guess in hindsight, maybe that didn't work out the way they thought it was going to work out for Sam Hartman. Not the best quarterback in the conference, because Drake may exist, but a good quarterback in the ACC. And now they're trying to do it again here with Riley Leonard. Who's a more athletic version of Sam Hartman, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sam Hartman might be a better passer. I think there is some question of what level of passer Riley Leonard can become. But he definitely has the athletic traits of a guy who the NFL would covet, and he's going to go try to hone all of that in a Notre Dame offense that's going to have 17 brand new receivers next year.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on with this. Part of the deal is that Notre Dame and Duke played each other this year, right? So you got a close-up look at it. Riley Leonard in that game against Notre Dame was not great. 12-27 for 134 yards. That was kind of it was a big build-up to that game. I think College Game Day was there at Duke for that, and then Notre Dame took care of business there. Should Notre Dame, we asked the question with Oregon, should Notre Dame be on the transfer quarterback portal treadmill, or should they be? Now they do have CJ Carr coming in, and this feels like maybe a one-year thing, right? CJ Carr can learn next year. Riley Leonard starts, and then CJ Carr, the grandson of former Michigan coach Lloyd Carr, is ready to start in year two.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that plan. I think if you have a bridge to CJ Carr, who I actually saw CJ Carr in person in an Elite 11 regional. I remember when was that? It was last spring, I guess. Good player, for live arm, you see why he's so highly rated, but you obviously don't want him starting as a true freshman. So I think that's a difference for me with we talked about Oregon earlier. Oregon doesn't have somebody like that in the pipeline. They're at the moment looking at kind of transfers only until that changes. Notre Dame, I think, has a plan in place and is getting, I don't know, maybe the best available quarterback of the transfers with Riley Leonard. I think it's either Riley Leonard or Dillon Gabriel, who we talked about earlier. I guess it's a matter of preference of playing style there, who you think is the better transfer. But it's a good pickup, I think, for Notre Dame. I'm just like, it's hard to think what it's going to look like because there's a lot of moving pieces on Notre Dame's offense.
So congrats to the North. They got Dillon Gabriel's better than them going to play in the SEC or something. So Dillon Gabriel and Riley Leonard headed north. All right, next bowl game. We're both picking who here? Notre Dame, because they have slightly more left than Oregon State does?
I'm picking Notre Dame with the thought that like the tackles and Audric Estime are going to play.
Yeah, okay. I'll agree with that. Both taking the Irish. All right, next up is the Liberty Bowl. 9-3 Memphis versus 7-5 Iowa State. They're played each other once before in the Liberty Bowl in 2017. Iowa State won that game 21-20. This is usually an SEC Big 12 matchup, but there were not enough SEC teams that were bowl eligible. Dog mentality. So Memphis gets to play this game in its home stadium against Iowa State. Iowa State FEI 28th, pretty darn good. Memphis 58th, not a very good defensive rating in the hundreds for Memphis. I don't know. Not super psyched. Not super psyched for this one. Feels like Iowa State.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird, not all that exciting matchup. I like Iowa State too. Iowa State will be without, I guess it's top two running backs. But we saw what Abu Sama is able to do. He actually is their leader in rushing yards. They're just missing their two guys, I think, leading in carries. But if they have Abu Sama, they're going to play defense the way they play defense all year. Memphis, I think, is going to be missing a couple of offensive line starters, and also their defensive coordinator, Matt Barnes, is leaving to go to Mississippi State. That might be a net positive for Memphis, but either way, it's never great to lose your coordinator as you're preparing for a bowl game. So I like Iowa State too, but yeah, this is not a game that gets me all that juiced up.
Iowa State favored by 8.5, December 29th, 3:30 on ESPN. Not super high on the list of most interesting bowl matchups. This one is a little more interesting.
Yeah.
This is one of the New Year's Six. It's on December 29th. It is Ohio State versus Missouri. 11-1 Ohio State with a loss to Michigan. 10-2 Missouri. FEI, both pretty highly ranked. Ohio State's third in the FEI rankings. Missouri is 14th. I don't know, man. It's a lot of motivation here, and it's a lot of what is the Ohio State team going to look like. We are recording this on the day when Ohio State is having its news conference with its players for bowl season. I would assume in a few hours there will be more information about which Ohio State players may be opting out of the bowl, but also maybe not necessarily, because usually you're only opting out. I mean, you're only opting out if you're not coming back. So there's a lot of NFL decisions for Ohio State guys. Yeah. This opened with Ohio State as a favorite, and then Kyle McCord goes in the transfer portal, so they know they're going to have a new quarterback for this game. Now Missouri is favored. It is very difficult to get a handle on this game right now.
That's what I have on my notes here. I have no idea what to expect from Ohio State, and Missouri is good. So like, I really have no clue what Ohio State's roster is going to look like. I do think there could be some surprising decisions that ultimately work in Ohio State's favor in terms of guys who we think might be going to the NFL coming back. And honestly, of the opt-outs the transfers they've had so far, aside from Kyle McCord, I don't think there are really any that I would consider tremendously impactful on this game. It's like Julian Fleming, their third receiver, is transferring, and Chip Trainum, like their second running back, is transferring. But if that was it, then like, oh yeah, like Ohio State, I think, is otherwise kind of ready to roll. But it's like, what's Marvin Harrison going to do? What's Travion Henderson going to do? And Emeka Ibuka and JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, Denzel Burke. Like, there's just there are probably 10 guys who could end up not playing in this game that we don't know of just yet. So it's really, really hard to get a handle on. And meanwhile, Missouri looks like it's going to be ready to rock in this game. They don't have really much in the way of high impact transfers out or opt-outs. And I think this is a really important game for Eli Drinkwitz and his program, and they're gonna bring it. And I just don't know what Ohio State's going to bring.
December 29th, 8 p.m. on ESPN. Missouri favored by about a field goal right now. I think you could argue that this is Missouri's biggest bowl game since the Orange Bowl on January 1st, 1970, when Penn State was number 2 and Missouri was number 6 going into that game. Like this is what we are talking about here. Ohio State has made a New Year's Six Bowl. Like this is in the 10 years of the 4-team playoff where we have this designation of like the New Year's Six Bowls, that there's the playoff, and then there's also the 4 other bowls that matter. Ohio State's made one of those bowls every year. Mm-hmm. They're the only team that made a New Year's Six Bowl all 10 years. It's not a big deal to Ohio State. This is a huge deal to Missouri. Now, there have been other situations where Ohio State's had a bunch of opt-outs. It maybe felt like it was a bigger deal to the opponent. In 2017, they went to the Cotton Bowl. They played USC. USC had Sam Darnold. Denzel Ward opted out of that game for Ohio State, and Ohio State played a really good game and won. The Utah Rose Bowl 2 years ago, Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson opt out. It is the emergence of Jackson Smith-Njigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. CJ Stroud goes crazy. You think, hey, this means everything to Utah. What's it mean for Ohio State? And Ohio State goes out and wins a super dramatic, awesome, high-scoring game. So I certainly don't think you would assume that like Ohio State rolls over, because they don't have a history of rolling over in these bowl games. They go down and play. We just don't know how many players they're going to be missing. And they're at the very least, it feels like Devin Brown's going to make his first career start at quarterback.
Yes, I would be surprised if that weren't the case. He was dealing with an ankle injury for like the second half of the season, but I thought and he didn't play against Michigan, but I thought on the warmups for the Michigan game that he looked to be moving pretty good. And now obviously he'll have another month to get ready for this game. So I would imagine he will start. Ryan Day, I don't believe will talk again until signing day next week. So. And I don't know if he'll announce that then or not. Although I guess like if Devin Brown comes out and does interviews on Tuesday, then that's a pretty good indication of where that's going. The other option would be Lincoln Kienholz. And that's kind of it at quarterback for Ohio State. They only have 2 scholarship running backs on the roster at the moment, Travion Henderson and Dallin Hayden. So there are a couple position groups that can get a little hairy, which is why like my lean right now is Missouri. Like I think if I had to pick this game today, which we are, I'm picking Missouri, but I reserve the right to change my mind depending on what ultimately shakes out with Ohio State's roster.
Yeah, I agree with that. Same thinking for me. By the way, 10-1 all time in the series, Ohio State leads. For whatever reason, these teams played 9 times in the 30s and 40s. I don't know why. They also did a home and home in 1997 and 1998 that Ohio State won. Missouri's one win in this series, and you may hear about this as we get closer to the game. 1976 in September in Columbus, Woody Hayes, Ohio State's number 2 in the nation going into the game. Missouri is like on a backup quarterback. Missouri scores at the end of the game and goes for 2 and the win and gets it. They actually miss the 2-point conversion, and there's a penalty on Ohio State, and they get a second shot at it, and Missouri wins 22-21. And it's like one of the greatest wins in Missouri history. So again, like if you're looking for like the disparity between what this means is like a huge gulf, but I wouldn't say that means Ohio State's not going to try.
Yeah. I think they will try, because I think there's an energy too with like if it's a bunch of young guys playing for the first time. I think that helps that, and that's probably the situation Ohio State's going to find himself in. It'll be interesting to see what guys like Cade Stover, Tommy Eichenberg, like Steele Chambers, Josh Proctor, like guys who have just been in this program for a really long time who are out of eligibility or presumably going off to the NFL. 1, if they play, and then 2, what their motivational factor is to like end their Ohio State careers on the right note, because I think that matters too. Yeah.
Okay. Now we are on to the next bowl. It's the Peach Bowl, and this is the first of 3 matchups where I think the Big Ten team and the SEC team are the same team. This is 10-2 Ole Miss versus 10-2 Penn State. Penn State's 2 losses are to Ohio State and Michigan. Ole Miss's 2 losses are to Georgia and Bama. So combined, these teams have 4 losses to the top 7 teams in the country. And then they beat everybody else. Penn State, in their 10 wins, outscored the opposition 419-93. Pretty darn dominant. Ole Miss, not quite as dominant, outscored the opposition 391-192. They have never played each other, so this is new. James Franklin and Lane Kiffin, like that's an interesting matchup. I think there is a lot of interest to this. And it doesn't feel like necessarily these teams are going to have a hole blown in the side of their rosters by everything. So FEI, Penn State number 5 overall this season, Ole Miss number 20. I think this is a good, interesting game that tells each program something about where they stand in the pecking order of college football. I kind of think it's on for this one in Atlanta.
Yeah, it seems like it. Like Ole Miss does not have a bunch going on with its roster. Penn State will not have Chop Robinson. He opted out. And did you see Lane Kiffin like retweeted? Chop Robinson announced it, and Lane Kiffin said like, "Congratulations." Like go get it in the NFL or something like that, which I thought was great. Theo Johnson, one of Penn State's tight ends, has opted out of this game. I guess there's still like the question of whether or not Olu Fashanu, the left tackle for Penn State, will play. Like Kalen King, very talented cornerback, will he play? There's some NFL guys on Penn State's roster that I guess could ultimately still decide they're not playing, but at the moment it does look like a relatively whole Penn State roster against an Ole Miss roster that has basically been playing with for the entire season. So like you're getting mostly the best of both these teams, and I think they're two really good teams. I'm excited too to see like what a month to prepare might look like for Drew Aller in this game. I think they were like very clearly trying to get a different level of play out of him and trying to be a little more aggressive throwing the ball with their new offensive coordinators. And Ole Miss's defense is fine. Like they're pretty good on the defensive line, but I think there'll be opportunities to throw the ball down the field for Penn State if it wants to embrace those opportunities. So, or at least I'm hopeful, I guess, that Penn State doesn't like kind of come out and play the way it's played all year on offense, which is like fairly conservative. I'd like to see them kind of cut it loose in this game if they can.
Again, it's hard to get a read on these teams a little bit. They're just like below that top tier. The best wins for these teams, I guess, Penn State's is over Iowa, who finished number 17 in the country. Ole Miss beat Tulane, Auburn, and LSU. LSU's finished number 13. So it's like they just can't quite hang with the best teams in their conferences. I do think it matters. James Franklin is 3-1 in New Year's Six bowls. So like Penn State gets ready pretty well for these big games. Lane Kiffin 0-1 in New Year's Six bowls. So I think that's something. Last time Ole Miss was in the Peach Bowl, they got smashed by TCU when TCU was mad about not getting in the playoff after the 2014 season. Penn State has never played in the Peach Bowl. The one thing for Penn State is coordinator changes on both sides. So they fired the offensive coordinator, they hired the Kansas guy, and now Manny Diaz, who's been very effective as a defensive coordinator the last 2 years, is taking the Duke head coaching job. So we're not sure about the roster changes for Penn State, but this is a lot of upheaval to be without the coordinators you had most of the year.
Yeah, especially for the defense, I think. I just think that there was like a really solid connection between Penn State's defensive players and Manny Diaz and the style of play that they embrace there. And they'll still play the same way, I would imagine. But it's just different, I guess, not having that voice there that you're used to. And also like Ole Miss, with Lane Kiffin and his play design chops, and like Jackson Dart's a pretty good quarterback, and Quinshon Judkins is one of the best running backs in the country for Ole Miss. He's a really good player, probably the best running back Penn State will face this year. So there's some challenges there for Penn State's defense without Manny Diaz. But I think, if it ends up that they're only missing Chop Robinson on the defensive side, then I still think Penn State's in a pretty good spot here.
Yeah. Penn State favored by 3.5, December 30th, noon on ESPN. This one I'd put on your calendar. I think this one's worth watching.
I agree. Who's your pick?
Right. I'll take Penn State.
Yeah,
I'll take Penn
too.
State.
Me too.
Okay. And that'd be big. Like the Ole Miss pass defense is not very good, so this is another that adds to the opportunity of if they're Penn State's trying to be a playoff. I mean, both these are the exact kind of teams that in the 12-team playoff are going to be in the playoff, and so they may as well view this as an 8-9 playoff game, right? Just like take that attitude and prepare yourself for what you want to be in the old world of like, is Ole Miss ever going to get past Bama and Georgia? No. Is Penn State ever going to get past Ohio State, Michigan? Well, the recent history would tell you no. Well, now you don't have to, right? Just get in the playoff and then take your shot. But this is exactly this, right? Is this, and we need to get prepped for this too. This is exactly what an 8-9, 7-10 first round playoff matchup is going to look like, right?
Was this actually, if they did the 12-team playoff, were these? No, because there were rematches, right? But we were talking about it like, could they fudge it a little bit and avoid the rematches and actually have these two teams play each other?
Yeah. So in the final playoff rankings, Penn State's 10 and Ole Miss is 11. So they would have been just off of playing each other. If they would have followed it, you would have wound up with Georgia, Ole Miss, and Penn State-Ohio State. But like, again, this is the realm. So like, I think this is a good game. Imagine if this game was to then play Michigan in the next round, right? I mean, this is like this. We have to condition ourselves to care about games like this. So let's pretend this is our pretend playoff game. It's at a New Year, right? It's at a Peach Bowl site that's going to be the site of playoff games. So everybody get fired up for this. All right, the next one is the next SEC Big Ten matchup that is the same teams playing each other. This is Maryland at 7-5 versus Auburn at 6-6. In the FEI rankings for the season, Auburn is 33rd. Maryland is 30th. Auburn is a more defense-heavy team. Maryland is a little more balanced. Mike Locksley, the Maryland coach, 2-0 in bowl games. Hugh Freeze, the head coach at Auburn in year one in his career, he's 6-2 in bowl games. Corey Dyches, the Maryland tight end, I think is not going to be around for this one, Landis. It sounds like Mike Locksley saying that Talia Tagovailoa, the quarterback, probably is going to play in this. Yeah. So I think we should get a pretty reasonable facsimile of what these two teams are in the Music City Bowl.
For Maryland's offense, Maryland on defense, Jayshon Barham, their talented middle linebackers in the portal. Tarheeb Steele, one of their starting corners, has opted out of this game. So they're missing two pretty important pieces off of a defense that actually was pretty good this year. I think by Maryland standards was actually quite good. They've had some struggles on the defensive side of the ball kind of since joining the Big Ten, but this group was decent and especially so against the run. But if you pull out like the middle linebacker, one of your better corners, I think you expect a little bit of a step back. Auburn's offense, it's kind of weird. Like for being a Hugh Freeze team, their offense is actually not particularly good. They run it okay, but they can't throw it all. But I don't know. I wonder about the level of play that Maryland's defense can like muster in this game. And because they were like really good the last time we saw them, or not the last time we saw them, but when they played against Michigan, I thought that was a tremendous defensive performance for Maryland that almost kind of boosted them to an upset win there. If they could play that way in this game, then I think Maryland could win it. But if you take those two important pieces out, I just don't know that they can. And then even if Talia Tagovailoa plays, which we do think he's going to, it's not quite the like potentially explosive Maryland offense that I think we've come accustomed to with Mike Locksley teams. So yes, they're more or less what they've been all year, both of these teams, but I think also both these teams have just been sort of average this year. So I don't really know what to make of it.
Yeah, both very average. The conference wins for Maryland, Michigan State, Nebraska, Indiana, Rutgers. The conference wins for Auburn, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt. So Auburn was 3-5. Maryland was 4-5. The conference losses, Maryland, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Northwestern, Illinois. The conference losses for Auburn, Texas A&M, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Bama. So like nobody beat anybody. You like just make a bowl game because you play a lousy non-conference schedule and you guarantee yourself 3 wins. But the weird thing is Maryland gave Michigan a game, 31-24, and Auburn probably should have beaten Alabama. Yeah. If not for a 4th and 31 miracle, they would have beaten Alabama. So they never got over the top of it against anybody. But late in the year, they both gave a playoff team all they could handle and were on the edge of changing the playoff picture if either one of those teams had pulled off an upset. So like, that's why I'm saying they're like the same. They're, had a one good close game, but no actual real good win. And I don't know who's supposed to be better now. Auburn is favored by about a field goal.
They also too didn't look like Maryland played Ohio State really tough for a half, and everyone was like, "What the heck's going on here?" And then Auburn played Georgia really tough for more than a half, and everyone was like, "Is Auburn going to beat Georgia?" So like both of these teams do have a level to them that I think can be a little dangerous. I think I would side with Auburn here just because they're not dealing with really any kind of impact losses, and Maryland has a couple of them. But I think it could be a pretty competitive game, actually.
I do. Auburn's one of the worst passing teams in the SEC.
Yeah.
I think that could be if Tagovailoa plays and Maryland can go out and throw it around a little bit. I kind of like Maryland's chances. So actually, I will take the Terps here.
Okay, I'll take Auburn.
All right. We are going to squeeze in one last break and then finish up with, what do we got? Like 4 more bowl games. Yep. And then we will wrap it up here with our bowl preview on Kings of the North. 4 more games here to preview on our Bowl Mania for Northern college football teams. Next up is the Arizona Bowl. That's in the South, but it's 2 Northern teams. It's Toledo versus Wyoming. 8-4 Wyoming, like the 5th best team in the Mountain West, versus 11-2 Toledo, who lost, which really looked like the best MAC team the whole year. Yeah. Lost in the MAC championship game to Miami. Very underrated secret aspect of this game, Landis, that I might be the only person in the nation who's really kind of cued into this, but what's your first blush on this matchup in the Arizona Bowl?
When I saw it come out, I was really excited about it. I think it's 2 of the better G5 programs. I mean, not 2 teams that had the best G5 seasons, because like Wyoming was, like you said, probably more like the 4th or 5th best team in the Mountain West this year, but just 2 like steady group of 5 programs. And then also now has another added layer onto this, because this will be Craig Bohl's final game as Wyoming's head coach. The former North Dakota State national championship coach has been at Wyoming, I think, for 10 years now.
10 years, yep.
Yeah. So this will be his final game, and they're promoting from within to succeed him. So there's a little bit of an emotional element, I guess, to this one for Wyoming too, for wanting to send Craig Bohl out on the right note.
But what is the most difficult aspect of that situation for Toledo to overcome?
I don't know. You tell me.
His name is Bowl.
Oh, like there's
the guy's name. How are you going to beat a guy named Bowl in a bowl? It's like, are you going to play in the Arizona Bowl? We're going to play in the Craig Bowl. Like this is the Craig Bowl.
I've had conversations with this about people, and I'm not saying that Craig Bohl does this. He's an older gentleman. I'm sure he's a very happily married man. But if your last name was Bohl and you were like a younger guy, like on the dating scene, would your pickup line be like, hey, sweetheart, you're Bowl eligible? Maybe not sweetheart. Sweetheart might get you smacked in the face.
Too good. That is really good. And then the sponsorship opportunities are endless there.
Yeah.
For the Craig Bowl, brought to you by I was gonna say something dirty, but I didn't know what to say. Plus, he's a fine, upstanding gentleman.
Yeah. One time, so we were on vacation. On vacation? Yeah.
You do not have a story about meeting Craig Bohl on vacation.
No.
Okay.
So we were not. We went to a wedding in Colorado as a lead into what was then a vacation in Hawaii. But when we were in Colorado, we'd never been there before. Wanted to go to Wyoming, see what Wyoming's all about. So we went to Laramie, and like I like to go to college football stadiums when I'm on college campuses, like break into them if I have to. But Wyoming's just open. So anyway, we went to go see Wyoming's football stadium. It was very cool, but it was in the off season, so I parked in Craig Bohl's parking spot.
Oh,
yeah.
And you lived to tell the tale.
It's right. Yeah.
He's a fine fella. Craig Bohl's really good. In 10 years at Wyoming, had 3 losing seasons. His first 2 years and the COVID year. Previous to Craig Bohl getting there, Wyoming had losing seasons 10 of 14 years. So this was a losing program turned into a winning program. And I am curious how he's going to go down in history there. There have been some really good coaches at Wyoming. Bob Devaney, but then he went on to Nebraska. Joe Tiller, then he went on to Purdue. Fred Akers, then he went on to Texas. Like this was the last stop for Craig Bohl. So he's going to leave to become the president of the American Football Coaches Association. So he's got a new job lined up. But like the juice here, like this is like Urban Meyer in the Rose Bowl against Washington in 2018. Like when you've got a successful coach who has announced that it's his final game, like, I don't know, man. Wyoming played Ohio in this bowl last year and lost in overtime. Craig Bohl is 3-2 in bowl games. Toledo had a great season. Is DeQuan Finn going to play in this game? DeQuan Finn is like in the transfer portal. There's a great quarterback for Toledo. Is he out?
I don't know that he's officially out. I mean, I'm skeptical of anyone playing. I'm looking now to see if he's officially out. But I guess when he first went in, I was like, oh, he might still try to play. That just seems like really difficult. So, yeah, it looks like he's not playing in this game.
Okay. That's a tough spot. I guess Tucker Gleason looks like the quarterback then for Toledo. Just a really tough situation all around. Toledo's an underdog by about a field goal here. This feels like a Wyoming send-off, right?
It does to me. Yeah, I think plus like your Toledo, you lose to Quan Finn. I think they're going to be missing another offensive line starter, I believe is in the transfer portal as well. And I just think a lot of air came out of the Toledo balloon when they were favored in the MAC championship and then lost that game to a team that was playing its backup quarterback, kind of got like out physicaled in that game. A pretty deflating loss, I think, there. And at that point, it probably felt like for a lot of people, Toledo's season was over. And it just feels hard to bounce back for a game like this, especially when you're facing a team that has the motivation of wanting to send Craig Bowl off on the right note. And also Wyoming got hit pretty hard by transfers last offseason. So far, they're okay. I think they're going to be missing one defensive starter in this game, but otherwise they should be in decent shape going into this game. And obviously Toledo's missing its best player. So yeah, I'm with you on Wyoming.
December 30th, 4:30 p.m. on Barstool. I don't know what that means, so go find it somehow, one way or the other.
I don't know where you find that either. I know that they've done this game the last few years. I guess it just streams on their website.
Good luck to Barstool. 1-1 all time. Toledo and Wyoming, for whatever reason, played a home and home in 2010 and 2012, and they each won on the road. So this is a fun little matchup. Toledo, 11 wins for Toledo. It's already a great season. It just is a tough spot for them. So we'll both take Wyoming here.
Yep.
All right. Next one is Wisconsin versus LSU. This is in the ReliaQuest Bowl. This is where maybe it felt like you might have had a shot at somehow spinning a Notre Dame LSU thing. LSU 9-3 with Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels. Wisconsin 7-5. Based on the FEI, like the FEI loves LSU because LSU lost to good teams and didn't beat anybody good. They beat Missouri. That's their best win. LSU 7th overall, Wisconsin 47th. Braylon Allen is heading to the NFL, the great Wisconsin running back. And I don't know that we know for sure, but I can't imagine Jaden Daniels and their great receiver Malik Neighbors playing in this game. Although there is a tiny wrinkle to that some LSU reporters have theorized about. So LSU is all about offense. They are number 1 in FEI in offense and number 101 in defense. Yeah. They haven't stopped anybody all year, and that's why Jaden Daniels has had to lead them to score 50 points a game. I mean, if they don't have their quarterback and the receiver, it's a completely different game. And you just don't know. I don't think we know for sure. I would assume they're not going to play very much.
I think not. This is the number 1 scoring offense in the country versus the number 102 scoring offense in the country. Clashing styles here. Yeah, I can't imagine that LSU is going to have all of its offensive firepower in this game, and probably will lose some guys on defense too, even though the defense was not particularly good. So I don't know what to make of it. Like Tanner Mordecai's not playing, is playing. Like was he lost for the year? I don't. What is Wisconsin doing at quarterback in this game?
I don't even know.
They're down Braylon Allen. Ches Malusi's out for the year. Chimera Dike is in the transfer portal. Skylar Bell and other receivers in the transfer portal. Like there's not a whole lot going on for Wisconsin's offense. And I think by the time this game arrives, there will not be a whole lot going on for LSU's offense either. Although I guess assuming Jaden Daniels doesn't play, it's Nussmeier will play, right? And he's got some experience anyway.
Yeah.
So that's an advantage for them.
Yeah.
Probably.
Garrett Nussmeier is not a bad quarterback. The wrinkle here is that Malik Neighbors has 2,980 career receiving yards at LSU. The all-time record for most receiving yards at LSU is 3,001. So he needs 22 yards to become LSU's all-time leading receiver. And I have seen people theorize, would perhaps Jaden Daniels play like the first series or two with Malik Neighbors to help him get the record? And then they would both come out.
Yeah.
So as you're trying to figure out what that means for who's going to win the game or what you're going to pick, LSU's favored by 10. Have that in the back of your head. Maybe that means LSU gets a drive or two. It's on New Year's Day at noon on ESPN2. LSU leads the all-time series 3-1. They played a home and home in 1971 and 1972. And then they played a really cool home and home sort of in 2014 and 2016. They played in Houston in 2014, and they played at Lambeau Field in Green Bay in 2016. And let me give you the most interesting thing about this game, other than the fact that the Heisman Trophy winners may be going to play 10 snaps in this game. 2016, LSU is number 5 going into that game at Lambeau Field. It's Leonard Fournette as the LSU running back, Corey Clement as the Wisconsin running back. Try to sort of get that in your head of what that era was. Mm-hmm. Wisconsin wins 16-14, and it is the beginning of the end of Les Miles. Les Miles gets fired after 4 games in 2016 at 2-2. This surprise upset in the opener is the start of it. which leads to Ed Orgeron replacing him and then getting the full-time job, which leads to all the Joe Burrow coach. Oh, I can't believe I took him on Les Miles after the Lambeau. And like that era of LSU football, Wisconsin starts it because Wisconsin's like, that's it. Les Miles can't stick around. Wisconsin that year in 2016, it's year 2 of Paul Chryst. Holy moly, here comes Wisconsin. They beat LSU. Their only regular season losses were Ohio State and Michigan. They lose to Penn State in the Big Ten title game, in that game where Penn State came back and won. And then they still made a New Year's Six, and they beat Western Michigan in the New Year's Six Bowl. So that this turned out the last time they played, started a bad LSU year and started a good Wisconsin year, and then think how much has happened at both programs since then. So crazy. Anyway, it's a crazy that they do actually have a little bit of recent history when maybe you wouldn't think that LSU and Wisconsin do. So anyway, I still think you have to pick LSU here, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like Wisconsin is another program that I think like takes bowl games seriously and places some level of importance on them, and they typically win them. They've won 3 in a row. They've won 8 of their last 10. So I do think it matters to them. And Luke Fickell's in a weird spot where he's in his first season as a head coach at Wisconsin, but can get his second bowl win if he wins this game because he coached the Guaranteed Rate Bowl last year for Wisconsin after taking the job and leaving Cincinnati. But I like LSU here, and even more so now. I was unaware of that the theory with Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors. So if those guys play even a little bit, I think it could be a situation where like those guys play. LSU gets up 14-0, and Wisconsin's just not built to even overcome that kind of deficit.
Yeah. Okay. Next one is Iowa versus Texas. This is another New Year's Day game, another Big Ten SEC matchup. I do like these mid-tier SEC Big Ten matchups. It's been a staple of bowl season for a long time. I do think it's cool. This is another game where I think the team, they don't play the same. They actually play opposite, but they have a lot in common. This is 10-3 Iowa and 8-4 Tennessee. Tennessee leads the all-time series 2-1. This is in the Citrus Bowl. Iowa won the 1982 Peach Bowl when they played each other. They played a kickoff classic game in East Rutherford, New Jersey in 1987 that Tennessee won. And then Tennessee at the end of the 2014 season beat Iowa in the Tax Slayer Bowl. So 2 bowls and a kickoff classic in their history. This will be the 4th time they meet. Tennessee in the FEI overall ratings 19th. Iowa 45th in the overall ratings. That includes Iowa's offense being ranked 123 and their defense being ranked 5th. The thing that these teams have in common is that they didn't beat anybody good. Again, this is the tier below Penn State-Ole Miss. This is like clearly the next tier down, and they're on the same tier because Iowa lost to Penn State, lost to Minnesota, and then lost to Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. They didn't score against either Penn State or Michigan. And Tennessee lost to Alabama, Georgia, Missouri, and Florida. So Tennessee's best wins are Kentucky and Texas A&M. Iowa's best wins are Utah State, Northwestern, Rutgers, and Wisconsin. Like, it is just a very like, hey, who's the 5th or 6th best team in your conference kind of matchup. And I don't know that it's going to be very, very good.
No, it'll be weird. Like I don't. Tennessee's defense is not so good. Tennessee is like 4th or 5th in offense and defense in the SEC. But I don't think they're so good defensively that like Iowa will once again see its offense get shut out. Although it's on the table, I guess, with how inept they've been on that side of the wall and some of the losses they've had to deal with player wise. Not a lot of opt-outs in this game. Not a whole lot of transfer impact in this game. I don't really think either of these two teams is particularly good, but I think Tennessee is better and like has some better athletes. And I question if Iowa can keep up with those athletes in this game.
Yeah, Tennessee wants to chuck it around. Iowa is all about defense. A year ago, for instance, Tennessee did see Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman, their best receivers, opt out, but like Darnell Wright, who went on to be the number 10 pick in the draft a year ago as an offensive tackle, played in Tennessee's bowl game last year. So like, I don't know. It feels like Joe Milton, the quarterback, is going to play. Like, I don't know why he wouldn't. So I do think, again, Iowa's been so decimated by injuries that it's like Iowa's been dealing with playing a bunch of backups. They've lost tight ends. They lost their starting quarterback. They lost Cooper DeJean, who's an All-American at cornerback. Like, they have not been themselves fully for a long time. So I don't know. It's 1:00. It goes head to head with a Wisconsin-LSU game. It's on ABC at 1:00. Tennessee's favored by about 8.5 in this game. So I think I'll take Tennessee, but it's just kind of a weird little matchup. And I just think that Iowa probably is just out of juice.
Is there any chance that this is Kirk Ferentz's final game at Iowa?
It doesn't feel like it. When the Brian Ferentz stuff first went down, right, that was like the next step of that. And I think like in the moment, it felt like, oh. And then it feels like everybody's kind of come back and said like, no, that's not what this means.
Yeah.
So that is not how I am looking at this game. Are you looking at it possibly like that?
No, I think because Kirk Ferentz has been there forever, but how old is he? He's like 68, right? He's not like,
yeah, he's not 80.
It's not like he's like 75 years old, right? So no, I don't think so. It would be obviously an incredible layer to this if that were the case, but I don't think that's what we're staring at. I think Kirk Ferentz, even though this has ended up being a very good season for Iowa and they went to the Big Ten championship, I think Kirk Ferentz is probably not quite ready to go out on the note that Iowa had this year. So, but I'll take in Tennessee too. I just think there's too much firepower there for Iowa to keep up with.
Okay, and then the last one that we're going to talk about is probably the worst matchup of bowl season. It is what I think is going to be like an angry out to prove something Oregon team against Liberty as the Group of 5 team that got the automatic bid to a New Year's Six Bowl. It's in the Fiesta Bowl. Oregon 11-2, Liberty 12-0. Liberty has made a bowl game every year since it moved up to the FBS. So this is their 5th straight bowl. They're 3-1 so far, but their 3 wins in their bowl games are Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina, and Eastern Michigan. And last year they lost to Toledo in a bowl game, and now they're playing Oregon. Mm-hmm. So this is Jamie Chadwell stepping up at Liberty. He did a great job at Coastal Carolina. Now he moved up. They had a great year this year. All credit to them. Is this competitive? Bo Nix, the Oregon quarterback, is going to play. We don't know much about, I think, the rest of the great Oregon players, Troy Franklin, Bucky Irving.
Bucky Irving's out.
Bucky Irving's definitely out.
Jackson Powers Johnson's out. Yeah.
The All-American center. Bucky Irving's definitely out. Okay, I didn't realize that.
That's like, I think, relatively new here since yeah.
Okay. So is there any way that this is like a 2 touchdown spread plus? Is there any way that this is like competitive in your mind?
I think it could be pretty pointsy. I don't know that it is competitive because I just don't think. I mean, if all of Oregon's receivers end up opting out, then maybe. But I just don't think Liberty's in a position to stop whatever Oregon wants to do offensively, so long as Bo Nix is playing and he has like Troy Franklin and Tej Johnson to throw to. But like Troy Franklin could opt out, Tej Johnson could opt out, AJ Cornelius, their starting right tackle, could opt out, and then I think you start getting into the territory where this does become a competitive game because Liberty is pretty good on offense, right? Jamie Chadwell knows what he's doing on that side of the ball. Caden Salter, their quarterback this year, had a really good season. I think like if angry Oregon, to your point, shows up, then I don't think Liberty has any kind of chance in this game. But I wonder if we're getting angry Oregon. I don't know that we are. I think like. What does Oregon have to be angry about that it couldn't get the job done against Washington twice? It's not like they were screwed over by anybody in this game, unless they just feel slated by the fact that they're the team that has to play the G5 team. I don't know. I wonder what Dan Lanning and Oregon's motivation is for this game, or if they're more focused on transfer portal and recruiting stuff than they are actually getting ready for a tricky Liberty team. Like I still think Oregon's going to win, but I think it could be closer than 2 touchdowns.
Oregon minus 17.5. Would you potentially take Liberty with the points here?
Yes, I would think about it. That's moved too. It was 16. So like it's as Oregon loses players, the line keeps growing in their favor. So
it's a huge deal that Bo Nix is playing. It is a huge deal.
Yeah, it is. And it's awesome for like I love that Bo Nix is playing. He's playing because he loves college football and like he wants to play his last college football game. That's great. And it's not to say like I don't. Whatever, Jackson Powers Johnson and Bucky Irving don't want to play because they're going off to the NFL. That's fine too. I'm not passing judgment on that. But I think it's similar to Ohio State, right? Like at the moment, Oregon still looks okay for this game, but as we get closer and closer to it, it could look drastically different. And I think Liberty is going to be Liberty in this game, which is like a very high-powered, hard to stop offensive team. So it could get interesting.
By playoff rankings, Oregon is 8 and Liberty is 23. Again, the best Group of 5 conference winners going to get an automatic bid next year. So this is what this wouldn't be the 5-12 game. Oregon's not quite as good as the 5, but a version of this, right? Like this is what you're going to be. It's going to be a very good team that did not win its conference title is going to be the 5 seed. So as we said, Ole Miss, Penn State, get your head around it. Oregon, Liberty, get your head around it. This is what the 5-12 games are going to look like going forward. Do you know this answer? We'll finish with this. How many of these group of 5 teams getting this New Year's 6 bid in the 9 years of this playoff system, what is their record in the bowl game? Do you know?
4-5.
Oh, you do know. Okay.
Yeah, I looked it up. Yeah.
So Boise State beat Arizona in 2014. Houston beat Florida State in 2015. UCF beat Auburn in 2017, and Tulane beat USC last year. Now, there's a lot of motivational stuff. Sometimes you get a sad Power 5 team. I think Oregon's going to be closer to mad than sad, right? Especially with Bo Nix coming back. You think maybe sad, like we lost to Washington twice? We're sad.
No, I think I agree with you that you're more likely to get mad than sad, or like energetic into it, because Bo Nix will be, and I think the rest of the team could feed off of that.
Yeah. So I don't think Liberty, when you talk about, again, like Boise State, Houston, Central Florida, Cincinnati, even like Tulane last year, Michael Pratt, like some of these group of 5 teams really bring something to the table. I think Liberty, it's the first time Conference USA has gotten a team in. I think they're a little bit of a cut below how good this team normally is. This is going to be a bigger picture discussion that we'll have in the offseason. I had this discussion previously on a different podcast. I do think in the first 5 years of the 12-team playoff, the 12 will beat the 5 within the first 5 years. That we will get, even when you have a motivated 5. I think there's going to be a goofy matchup, or like an NFL quarterback who's playing for a group of 5 team, or a stud edge rusher, and it's a 5 seed that has a weird flaw here or there. I think some people believe this 5-12 game is going to be like the worst part of the 12-team playoff. I think given the history, which is not exactly what the playoff will be, I actually think it's going to be a pretty good matchup. I just don't think this is a representation of that.
I think if you go back through the teams, the Power 5 teams that have played in this game, and this is just at the top of my head, like Oregon might be the best, right? Liberty is not the best G5 team, but I do think like it's not dissimilar from Tulane. Like Tulane's got kind of a funky offense and a good quarterback, and Liberty's got kind of a funky offense and a good quarterback. Like I don't think Caden Salter is as good as Michael Pratt, but I think Caden Salter's pretty good, like a former Power 5 guy. So I don't know. I'm with you here that I'm not on alert for like an upset, but I'm a little on alert for it being closer, especially if Oregon ends up losing some guys.
First 5 years of the 12-team playoff, does the 12 get a win?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right with that. Yeah. I take that bet. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that more in the offseason as we get more and more prepared for the 12-team playoff. For now, we would invite you to join the Bowl Mania pool. We wanted to do this. We're both taking Oregon in that game because we're not betting in our Bowl Mania pool on the spread. We're not worried about that. You're just picking winners. But you are applying, I want to give this game 38 points, or I'm going to only give this game 4 points. How much certainty you have about the game. So if there's I'm going to put probably Oregon as a very high confidence pick, just because I think it's a bad matchup for Liberty. So you can join us. It is the Kings of the North group on ESPN Bowl Mania, and you do need the password, and the password is Kings, capital K-INGS. And then we have some unfortunate news, Landis, that we do have to tell the people about, and it's my fault, and we're changing our plans, and we apologize, but sometimes life happens.
Sometimes life does happen, so we will not be on site at the playoff semifinals. And I guess, Doug, I'll let you say whatever you'd like to say about that.
Yeah, so I'm having eye surgery on Wednesday, and the result is I can't fly for several weeks after the surgery. And that means I can't fly to the Rose Bowl. And so the plan was for us to be at each of the sites. And it's like, well, if we're not going to be at both sites, then what are we doing? So we're going to, from our homes, bring you some playoff semifinal preview coverage, because we do care about what Michigan's doing against Alabama. We care about what Washington's doing against Texas. We just aren't going to be on site. And so, and I don't know that we're going to be necessarily doing like a show every day. That we had grand plans, because we have grand plans for this show. which is eventually going to be 5 days a week. This is a little unfortunate hiccup necessitated by a little minor medical thing that I have to take care of. So I apologize for that. It's why we didn't have a show Monday, but we're having this show on Tuesday. And so we may not have as many shows like in the coming week as we normally would have, but like we're not going anywhere, Landis. Like this is not the end of Kings of the North just because I have to have a little thing.
No. We still have all the grand plans for the future are still very much in place. Just the immediate ones about being on site for the playoff, unfortunately, have to be scrapped because of this. But like life happens sometimes. It's okay.
And I will give people a preview because we have discussed this.
Okay.
In a worst case scenario, we come out of this minor surgery with a new character here on Kings of the North, which is Eye Patch Doug.
I love Eye Patch Doug.
So like Eye Patch Doug opens up a whole new realm of opportunities. And I think you probably would be required to then choose. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons or something. Like you'd have to choose your character. So like you might have to wear, if I'm going to wear an eye patch, which I probably won't have to, but you might have to be like in chainmail. Or like always like take off your knight's helmet and set it next to your microphone. Like you'd have to come up with a character.
I think I would. Pirate's pretty good. Like
yeah.
I'm a little jealous that I can't be a pirate, but I could do chainmail. I think.
Yeah. Did you watch Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah.
You got a little mountain energy, right? You could be the mountain.
Yes, I could be the mountain. I think I'd rather be. I like the Hound. I like the Hound.
Oh, the Hound's good.
He had a good arc, I thought.
No, the Hound.
Maybe the best arc. Maybe the best arc.
Or maybe the whole thing is that you're the mountain and you gouged my eyes out. What happened? No, Doug got a little.
One of these.
Got a little out over his skis in the fight. Got a little full of himself and Landis gouged. But you're kinder. You only gouged out one of them.
Just one. Yeah, I still want you to be able to see and function. Yeah.
So I think it'll be okay. I mean, stuff happens. So we're anticipating good things, but in the meantime, like we got a little detour here.
Yeah.
So thanks to you guys for making Kings of the North part of your week. Again, we invite you to join us in Bowl Mania. Landis and I will have our picks in there. Mike, our great producer, will have our picks in there. Mike, I don't want to give away the game on you, but if you want to pop in here, there have been indications that at times you are pretty good at picking sporting events, correct?
No comment, I guess.
No comment. So yeah, he doesn't comment publicly, but every now and then it'll be like, Mike,
I don't want to mess up the good mojo. I don't want to mess up the good mojo.
Fair.
So I have never had good mojo, so I don't know what it means to mess it up. But Mike will be in there. I'm assuming he'll have some good picks, and then we want as many people in there. Tell your friends, and if you win, you get to come on the show and tell the South how and where to cram it. So for now, we'll see you in a little bit. We will be back and we'll be previewing semifinals. It's a big postseason for the North when we're all back to health. Well, me and we have opportunity and there are things that are happening. We'll check in when we can. But like, again, this is just the start of what this show is going to be. And we're just so grateful that you guys are here at the very beginning of it. So for now, again, Mike Urostowski, our producer who makes all this happen. He is the great Bill Landis. I am Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of the North.